You're listening to the Death Rattle Crew, a Hearthstone podcast.
DRC, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 15 of the Death Rattle Crew. This is a Hearthstone podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mike Tactu Hearn, and I'm joined today by Matt Mooshu Hill.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. Avery, you.
Hello.
Yeah.
And last, I'm going to get the name right this time and not like stammer and wonder which one.
Just pick one.
Just one. Don Mascarpone, how you doing, sir?
Good afternoon.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, couple of housekeeping things. Don't forget the Pit 2 is coming up May 30th. You still have time to go sign up. You can either go to www.deathrattlecrew.com, and it should be the first sticky is information on the Pit 2. Or you can just go ahead and head over to Battlefy. That's www.battlefy.com and get signed up there, and we'll see you then. Other than that, don't forget you can subscribe on our YouTube, Twitter, and also your podcast catcher of choice, be it iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it may be. Just search Death Rattle Crew. If you're not already subscribed, if you're not, get on it. What are you doing? Come on.
It's 2015, podcast or nothing.
Yeah, right. Wait a minute. What? Other than that,
He means it's easy to get to.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
that our podcast is worth nothing.
No. I said podcast or nothing. No.
Oh, podcast or nothing.
Yeah.
Oh
It's like-
man.
Yeah, no, I can't come on here and say, nah, our podcast is crap. Nobody listen to it, please. No, I'm like, our podcast is the best. It should be added to your daily regimen of podcasts that you listen to because it's 2015
That's
and that's
right.
the correct
So-
way to consume media.
Number one should be Serial. If you're not listening to that podcast,
Oh, that's great.
it's probably it's the second best podcast, other than the Death Rattle Crew. But
After hours, yeah.
yeah,
We're the best Hearthstone podcast
yes,
that is related to Serial.
that's right.
About cereal sometimes as well.
Yeah,
And,
I didn't have Serial this
yeah.
morning, but oh well. What you gonna do? But let's find out what's been going on this week. Can I start? Can I start?
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Matt's he's lagging out on us there, so I'm gonna start.
yeah, he is.
Ken. Yes, you can.
Oh,
you
there
may
he
speak.
is. All right, good. I just was looking for your permission, sir. So I got a cup. I'm gonna burn one rant card. So I'm not gonna burn it right now. Maybe I'll burn it when we get into meta anatomy. I've been pushing, and I finally hit rank 6 this morning. Yesterday I played, God, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 games. I didn't keep track, and was bouncing
Holy
from
crap.
5-star 7 to 1-star 7. It's probably 4 or 5 times I went back and forth. I don't know. That was the end of it. And this morning I finally made it. And my question for you guys is, people say, oh, the easier it gets easier to rank as long as the season goes on, because I'm sure there's people that don't play as much as, or maybe play the same amount that you do. Like, so I'm thinking I'm going against people that are either ranked better than me or as good as me. But then I'll get through those streaks where I'm playing against people at, whatever rank it may be, and going, what just happened? Like, I was playing against like a legend card back, golden control warrior. And then the next one, like today, I played against a hobgoblin hunter at rank 7. What?
I feel like you're definitely right that the longer a season is going on, the more likely you're going to play. It's easy to rank up because people are more likely to be closer to their, correct rank. Like so if you're a good player but not a great player, you'll be like, rank 6 to like 3 or whatever.
Right.
So what are we? It's the 17th of May, so we're halfway through the season. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely easier than it was last week or even the week before.
More importantly, it's easier to hit legend later in the season as well, because the players who are legend play as well as they should to hit legend are already at legend.
Okay.
So then their likelihood of pairing against them when you are not legend is lower. Yeah.
I'm also of the belief that people who show off the legend card back all the time are probably like the people who've only made legend once or twice. Because like I got over it. It's just like, but then I went back to, it just feels like something that I was really proud the first time I did it, and I just used it for the entire next month. And after that, I was like, you know what? I think it's time for a change. But
Whatever.
the thing is, don't be intimidated, Mike. You can just because they're a legend, that means they could have like cheesed the shit out of Undertaker when that was a thing. That's which is what I did.
I'm so it scares me so much.
I think part of it, like because you were mentioning those games where you are like, what just happened? Like, how did they play as badly as they did? I think it just comes down to how sometimes the game really throws these very, very difficult judgments at you where you have to make a choice, but it's like completely based on like heuristical judgment. It's like you're not exactly sure how this is going to work out. And I think sometimes it just comes down to failure of judgment from your opponent's part.
Yeah,
like,
well, and that's
they were thinking maybe your deck was running something else that you weren't actually, and they were trying to play around that, or
I don't know.
They were thinking if they do this specific thing, they might have a shot at winning, or I don't know. I find that sometimes that happens.
I think sometimes that's the case. I mean, I actually wrote down the last 2 decks I played before we started, and one was the Hobgoblin Hunter into a Tempo Mage that ran Deathwing. And I demolished both of them, but it was more of like, God, I'm playing against these, whatever, I guess we'll talk about it later, but, we got handlocks and, whatever the top meta decks are. And then I run into these 2 oddballs and I'm completely ready for them. And finally break, it takes hours, but I finally broke rank 7. It's odd. I just find it very odd. That's all.
They could just be trying decks, right? I mean,
that is very true. That's very true.
Like those, like they kind of want to be a bit original, and like people only get like really serious about the decks they play at starting 5. Before that, it's kind of like the what do you call it? The bonus star.
Yeah.
So like even if you're like sub 50%, like about 45%, you can still hit rank 5. Like you can slowly make your way there, and you're just trying out decks and stuff. So
I guess that's
like
true.
Most streamers, they don't really play real decks, even when trying to ladder until like rank 5, rank 4. Before that, they just like, they want to see Malagos rogue. Let's just play that.
Yeah, I guess you can get the win streak up to 5 eventually if you really want to hit it hard. Yeah.
And Malagos rogue is a thing to see, particularly when you have like the Sinister Strike and
I don't even get mad if I lose to it. It's like,
what? You don't get mad?
No, I just slow clap. It's like either I did something wrong or you got lucky. Just slow clap for you.
The 3 mana Fan of Knives bot clear, that kind of deal. Yeah, that's really funny. Well, I think with streamers in particular, I think they also like to play subpar decks just for fun. They're just trying to make their
they want those views.
more
Yeah,
fun to watch. Yeah.
I tried that earlier this late last week or something. I played it was like the Strivecrow egg dragon paladin thing. And
come on, man!
I've seen that.
I went 1 and 8. I went from like rank 6 or something back to rank 8. But it was really like troll because the first game I absolutely like wrecked face. I just like got off all because it's like you plays Scarlet Purifier, which does 2 damage to Death Rattle Vision. So I turn 1, coined into Nerubian Egg. Turn 2, Nerubian Egg. Turn 3, played Scarlet Purifier and summoned, got the 2 Nerubians. And from there, it was just sort of good. But yeah, other than that, I just got dumpstered. And I was just like in a mood to just play like this because I hadn't played any sort of Dragon Paladin. I was like, yeah, Strifecrow, he's probably got a good deck going. So we'll give this a crack. Hour and a half later, I was like, what am I doing with my life? What have I done?
To be fair, dude, you spectated me playing that exact deck like a week ago, and it was actually doing. I think it was just the meta. Like the meta's past Dragon Paladin by that point.
Yeah,
to the point where it's not good deck anymore.
Yeah, because I watched you win like 3 games in a row. I was like, oh, this thing is ridiculous. I was like, I'll give it back. I was like 3 or 4 eggs behind you, and it's like, nah, I'm getting shafted left, right, and center. It's wasn't
specifically on Dragon Pally. Like the Liquid Half does this like power rankings thing, like every week, and they like ask multiple pros, like I think Firebat and Dog, how would they rank the different decks on their dependent on their viability on the ladder, and like the guy whoever does the power rankings basically said Dragon Pally is not a thing anymore, so we're gonna remove it from the list entirely. So yeah, I don't think the deck's very runnable.
That's odd.
Yeah, it just felt like it was definitely good fun based on the fact of just like the interaction of the dragons. But there were a lot of times when like Blackwing Corruptor with his 3 damage just didn't cut it for removal, and like so you, because of like the amount of cards you need to make Dragon Paladin try and work like Dragon Paladin, you've removed a lot of, I guess, like tech cards. That is the one I had didn't have BGH or anything, so it was often you just get behind and stay behind. But every now and then you get like a decent curve, and like with any deck you can win with anything pretty much.
Would you say that at the moment where you were behind, the Dragon synergy just wasn't good enough anymore to get you back into the game?
Exactly. There was nothing that like the Dragon synergy I'd say is like a little bit better than fair, but it's not like good. Like it gives you like the 5 mana equivalent of the what is it, the fire elemental with the corruptor doing the 3 damage is really good for tempo, but sort of the later after that turn 5 it's just gets worse and worse and worse.
I think Avery to a point actually called this. I think he wrote in his Temper Storm article, was it? The one you published. You named Dragon Paladin the deck that everyone wants to work, and I kind of thought that was a good way to put it.
The console looks so good, everyone wants to play it.
It looked
like,
really good on paper, and it might still, but it might just need a bit more.
Maybe we need another release or two before it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so. I think the deck.
So?
Listen, I think the decks, the cards are good enough. It's just dependent on the way the meta game is shaped. For the like, if Druid ever becomes like the most popular deck again, then Dragon Paladin is super
It's
like
going
tier
to
1.
wreck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tier 1. But like if Face Hunter and even if like Patron Warrior is the number 1 deck, Dragon Paladin is actually pretty decent against Patron because all your minions are so large. So like if you just like, again, ladder rotates every week or every 2 weeks, and it really depends on the matchups. Like this week we got a new number 1 King of the Hill. Like Patron was the best deck for 2 weeks, and now it's like, you know, kind of like, even in terms of the numbers, the sheer numbers of the deck on ladder, they're just dropping off like quite tremendously because like people are slowly learning how to play against it and how to counter the strategy. So I mean, there's a place for any kind of deck on ladder, and like even though even Shaman, which is supposed to be the worst class in Hearthstone. I mean, don't tell me in the past week you guys haven't lost to Shaman at least once, right? Like
I haven't lost to Shaman at
No,
all.
me neither. No, me neither.
Oh, I have lost,
but I haven't seen a lot of them
just now. Yeah,
I lost it. I mean, I was playing Control Warrior, so maybe that's why. But like, every class and every deck is at some point viable. It just like it like, just because it's not viable this week doesn't mean it's not viable next week. And the cards in that Paladin has access to are definitely strong enough to make a comeback at some point. It's just not this period of time.
Yeah, I went 2-0 against Shaman this week. That being said, I was playing Face Hunter, so it's a much of a margin. It's just 1, 2, 3 face. It's good. It's fun times.
Well, let's just go down the list, and Mooshu, anything else you did this week? We'll just go down all you guys and see how this week's going.
I had a nice conclusion to. It was the last week of what was the NVIDIA GeForce Pro Amateur tournament. Yeah. And so this was the last. This was week 8. So this was the last round of the Swiss. But I just wanted to say that they have done a fantastic job, because this is what everyone wanted, was like a big Swiss tournament, and there were like thousands of people in this tournament, and it was run like really well. I actually got a forfeit win for my last round to the other player's dismay.
Nice.
Because the thing that made it so versatile was that, so there was a deadline where you had to play your round game in a week. Like, so you had to play one game each week, and there was a deadline which was Thursday night. But you could set the game for any time prior to that, or there was it was like 9 p.m. EST was the time it had to be played if you couldn't work out a better time. And I think he was in a pretty crappy time zone compared to me, because he was always trying to put up times like 4 p.m. and 3 p.m., which was like 3 and 4 a.m. my time. So I was like, no, I'm in Australia. I can't get up this early.
Yeah.
And so eventually what happened was it defaulted back to the original time of 9, which 9 a.m. in the morning is doable for me. And yeah, he I think he said he was working or something, so that sort of sucked for him. But he was not happy. I copped quite a bit of abuse. But at the end of the day, I won that by forfeit. So I ended up I went 5-3, which isn't really good enough for the playoffs. I think the minimum you get into the playoffs would be like 6-2. For anyone who has experience with Swiss, you sort of only really get a chance to lose 1 or 2 games.
X2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, well. But yeah, I just wanted to say, NVIDIA, good stuff, boys. That was a really enjoyable tournament. I got 2 wins from forfeits, and I actually forfeited 1 game because I slept through my alarm and missed the game completely.
Oh, that sucks.
So easy come, easy go, right?
Yeah.
But I guess if you're playing that kind of international, all around the clock kind of tournament, that's just part of the risk.
Exactly. That just happens. And the way they handled, I guess, that sort of thing with having the deadline for the game I thought it was really good.
Was good. They definitely needed that. Yeah. Otherwise, it would just have been a gigantic clusterfuck.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I did this week.
Okay, Avery, what's going on with you?
Nothing much, honestly. I've just been trying to get to legend. It's been a lot slower this season because I've been kind of busy doing other things, so I haven't had time to play a lot. Currently sitting at rank. I was at rank 2, but I just played like 2 games and dropped to rank 3. So that's sad. But I'll get there eventually. Handlock's a hell of a deck right now.
Yeah.
you with your 2 big game hunters in 2 hours. It was everything.
I mean, like, okay, I guess I'll probably talk about this later because I kind of want to talk about
I do
handlocks.
I do too. Yeah. I got a lot of things to say. Yeah.
It's pretty good now, just basically because it beats Patron and it happens to beat a bunch of other things other than Patron. So yeah, just laddering. Excited to play in the pit too at the end of the month.
Yeah, we again still got spaces open, guys. Get on it. So
I'll be ready.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dawn.
If I lose, if I lose early, can I cast?
Yeah, why not? Sure.
Because it's like a best conquest, right? And I don't trust my conquest skills.
We should incentivize him to lose early. That's definitely what we should do.
Whatever. Just we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. All right, Dawn. What's been going on with you this week?
Yeah, it's been kind of similar actually to Avery in the sense that there was just a lot going on. I didn't always find the time to play, but when I did manage to get to rank 15. So
nice.
I count that for me. Because I'd say easily the most casual of the 4 of us. So I don't have a full handlock deck, or else I'd be playing that at the moment probably. I'm just missing giants all over the place. It's like I never drew drew into any kind of giant whatsoever. I think I've got like a single mountain giant.
It's hard to draw into giants when you don't own giants.
Right.
That's the thing. No, that's what I meant. It's like I never
I know. I'm just kidding.
Almost as hard as a Jiraxis when it's
It's
very, very hard. Did you enjoy your 2 free packs, Don?
Yeah, I did enjoy. I think I got crap out of them, but still.
Yeah. When I heard that and I saw the post about it, I was like, hang on, I have an EU account that was made before the 14th of May. I'll go open 2 free packs, and yeah, I got trash out of him, but I disenchanted him, and it's building my my Master Race Zoo deck on EU, which currently has the Frostwolf dude in it. But I
got 2 legendaries in the last week. One of them was the Black Knight.
No, good.
Yes,
that's a clutch pickup.
And the other one was Vol'jin, but I already had Vol'jin, so kind of sucks.
Dust or
So
Reno?
Gonna be a giant then.
Yeah, right.
It might be.
Dust.
I don't know. Yeah,
Dust,
400 dust.
Dust or Reno?
Yeah, 400 dust, one molten giant. That's
the thing, though. Is like at the moment there's just so many different decks that when you're in my position and you don't have them completely yet, but you do want to try them and you do want to play them. It's really tough to make a decision. Like, what kind of deck should I focus on trying to complete and trying to bring to fruition? Because there's a lot of options right now, and I feel it's a tough call to make because as we talked about earlier already, the meta is shifting so much lately. It's just maybe you'll make a deck one week and then next week you'll find it's unplayable.
Oh,
crap.
when we get into the deck discussion, that's what's been happening with me specifically. It drives
Playing
me
like
nuts.
12 different decks.
No, I'm only 2, but it's just how like I play one and it did great, and then the next week it sucks, so I change to something else, and then the next week it's back on, and it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that was like how I felt when because I bought some packs actually because I felt like I needed to give myself a little boost. Yeah, I did.
Pay to win.
Treat yourself.
Oh shit! and I got a lot of because it was GVG packs. I got all the mechs that you would need to make a mech mage. It's just I realized that mech mage is not very good anymore. It's like
It's not bad.
it's not
actually going to be
bad.
quite good. I'm quite
but
sure it's
it's
going to be
like-
quite good.
The
You can
first
still
few
make it
games that
cheaper.
I played it, I felt it was just underperforming. It's like okay,
Next week,
Really?
guys. Big match.
really surprising.
Or were you
Like-
underperforming, Don? Is this?
I mean
We have
that's
to-
a possibility. I will not.
We have to separate these things. But on what you were saying before about not knowing what to craft, I think like because you're probably in a position where you've crafted like most of the staples that appear in several decks. Like for example, I think the biggest example is Dr. Boom.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
I'm far from
I-
having no.
I think if you're like struggling with things to craft, I think crafting something like Dr. Boom would be a good start because
Yeah.
trying to craft things that are in like most decks is a good way to start. Obviously, you'll
Yeah,
like
definitely.
not progress towards one deck, but then you'll have that versatility with being able to put Dr. Boom in all your near decks.
Mm.
And he's a good card. He's a good
It's a
card.
hell of a card, yeah.
yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of players struggle with is not having the cards, but having the desire and maybe even the skill to play those. I mean, I don't have the time, and you guys kind of tell me where you're at. Like I've spent a lot of money on cards just because I wanted to have them all, and I wanted to when a new deck comes out or there's flavor of the month, I want to play it. Not necessarily to win, but to have fun with it. So
My rule of thumb right now, because I realized this kind of sucks, but in a way it is to be expected if you're playing a collectible card game, is that sooner or later you will find yourself in a situation where you want to invest a bit of money.
Mm.
And for me, like my rule of thumb so far has been for every expansion on every adventure, I've always bought those since I never had enough gold to, because I'm constantly buying packs from gold. So because I want more cards, like I want more stuff to have. For every card, for every adventure and every new expansion, I've put down $20 to kind of get to kind of get there, and it helps a lot.
yeah, oh yeah,
I also find that maybe if you were really hardcore and you just had lots of money, maybe putting double of it, like $40, would probably give you a very, very good competitive edge for being very lazy, for not playing very much. But after that, it really starts having a lot of, and the value just starts dropping down, and there's a lot of how's it called? Diminishing
Opportunity
returns.
cost.
I was
okay.
going to say we don't know.
No, yeah,
I
the
think-
diminishing returns for buying more packs than just they start
sure.
skyrocketing.
I think
So.
for me, because I came from like a pretty decent card playing background of playing. I played Yu-Gi-Oh for like years and touched on like the WoW TCG for a bit and some other card games. And so I like had this whole mindset of I understand what cards are worth and how much like investing money into booster packs will work out for me. Because like in the sense that I was actually like opening up my my Blizz purchase history, and it's got to be at least like $400 that I bought in packs, and that was just most of that's all expert packs from beta, because I was just opening a box a week. But yeah, the difference between Hearthstone and other card games is this investment goes much further in Hearthstone than it does in other card games. Like I bought these cards in 2013. I bought like this $300 of expert card packs, and we're now like halfway through 2015, and like most of the cards that I got out of that I still use like every day, just because of how Hearthstone works, in that no bans, no changing like cards you can't suddenly play. But yeah, so in
To
my
be
mind,
fair,
it's
though,
worth it.
the investment is not more worth than other cards because cards in Hearthstone are not worth any actual money because you can't trade them in any way.
That is true.
As opposed
That
to
is
buying
true.
like
That's true.
At least
Like-
with games with physical card games, you can always sell them.
even online card games like Magic. There's an online market where you can sell your cards back to bots, and there'll definitely be someone who will buy it from you anyway.
That's true, but like, so that's the only time I feel like you would sell cards anyway is when you are done, like you don't want to play with them anymore. Whereas in Hearthstone, you can. It seems that they last a lot longer. Like, with the exceptions of things like Nat Pagle and things like that. But obviously, Blizzard gives you when they ever change the card, they give you the full card's worth back. So I think
I thought you were gonna say as compared to Hearthstone, where I will never stop playing. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it's
I would,
100% return.
Yeah, until Blizzard like closes the servers or something, I'll probably still be playing. Just be like,
But it does make you think though, because every time, like for me, every time I put down another $20 or so on Hearthstone, I kind of makes me think, like, is this for you? How much more enjoyment do you get out of this game? Is this the equivalent of buying a completely new game to enjoy, basically, which you would get for under $20 mostly, depending on the game, of course. But I play a lot of indie games, so for me, my price range is skewed down to the lower prices anyway. So
I was gonna say, what game do you enjoy for less than $20? I was like, hang on. That means it's a bad game, right?
No, there are plenty. Come on, I'll go down the list.
I'm fully my brother is a big proponent, someone who enjoys buying all the humble bundles and things like that. Where you get
me too. Yeah,
shit tons of games for like under $5. But I'm a Blizzard fanboy. Like the only two games I really play are WoW and Hearthstone, and then various other MMOs when they're like in popular and shit like that. But I'm a very sort of I'd say static game player. I'll just play something until I don't want to play it anymore. Well, for ages and ages and ages. So to me, $20 into Hearthstone is going to give me a lot more value than say $20 than you putting $20 into Hearthstone, Don, because as you say, you buy and play indie games, whereas I'm just like, nah, screw it. I'll just buy another 15 packs.
By the way, guys, you can buy packs for much cheaper, right? There's the you can buy it off Amazon App Store because now Hearthstone's on Android and you can use the Amazon App Store. And then once in a while, they have like a discount off the Amazon coins, which means that you can buy packs for cheaper.
Yeah.
There's a video of this by Raynet. I did that. That was the only time I bought packs. I bought like in my currency, $160+ worth. That was like one and only time. But I was just getting very frustrated that I was very limited in my card pool. So I just like, screw it, I want to build every single deck I want to build, and I just splash money.
Yeah,
and I don't regret it, seriously.
I do enjoy splashing money because that was one thing about being like a 13-year-old trying to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes.
You rock up to tournaments and shit, and like you're pretty. I was pretty good for my age, but then there was the people who would be I the same age that I am now back then, who had jobs and stuff and could invest their money into Yu-Gi-Oh and buy all the T1 cards. And I always wanted to be one of those people. And so now I can be as a Hearthstone player, like 9-10 years later. It's just like I can be that person who has all the T1 cards and doesn't have to worry about it. Money, as far as Hearthstone is concerned, money is not an object, but I'm not to the point where I'm going to have gold and everything. But I'll never I don't want to be gimped by the fact that I don't have a card, basically.
Coming from a Magic background, I know exactly what you mean. Like, you're just playing these budget decks that you construct out of like packs that you open, and all these guys just coming in and like, which deck should I play? And they're all foiled, like worth like $1,500 per deck, and they have 5 of them, and they're picking one of them for the small tournament that's like $5 entry and like $50 prize. It's just frustrating. Seriously,
it's like, screw you. Well, Mana Grind used to have tournaments. They had like obviously they had their weekly open tournament, but then they had during like on a Tuesday or Thursday or something, they had tournaments where you were restricted with what you can play. Like you could only play up to rares and stuff like that. Like they cut all the legendaries and epics, and I guess so more tournaments like that would be I guess player friendly. But Blizzard's not huge on restricting cards. So that's I can't imagine it getting a huge like things like Challenge Stone, for example,
Yeah.
not getting a huge
Yeah.
amount of Blizzard backing, where whether or not like other third-party places would like to back it. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think you can expect Blizzard backing for non-open constructed tournaments.
To be fair though, I mean, looking at the Hearthstone competition community, who the hell needs Blizzard backing? They don't even back much, right? Like they just say we'll give you some points, not much funding's given. Maybe they'll mail you like a
Well, that
mug
is-
or like prizes. but
That's back. I think so. Backing saying you can your tournament is worth points. I think is backing enough because it legitimizes it in the face of like the community. But yeah, as for prize support, I think the one live event that I've been to, they sent like those Hearthstone pillows that are
wow.
yeah, it was a Hearthstone pillow, a bunch of mugs. I think we even got some some booster pack codes and stuff like that. But yeah, not huge. But that being said, it's like you can't do as much with prize support. For example, with Magic the Gathering, like Wizards could be like, all right, we're going to support your tournament here. Have 6 boxes of this booster pack to give out as prizes. Yeah. Whereas it's hard. It's definitely like less effective in Hearthstone, I guess. But obviously, Blizzard could get behind it and say, here's 30 codes to give people a booster pack or something like that. But it's not as needed, I'd say, in Hearthstone.
Well, and this game's still young. I think it'll develop more in the future. I think for as young as it is, they're doing a damn good job though. But
I agree.
Yeah, it's huge. Like you saw the Heroes of the Storm World Championship prize pool was announced, and it's the same as Hearthstone, which in theory doesn't sound like massive or anything, but when you consider that Heroes of the Storm teams have 5 people at least on each team, and Hearthstone, it's only one guy. So $100,000 for the first place Heroes team is only going to be $20,000 each, whereas Firebat walked away with $100,000 for himself.
And here's another thing that kind of makes this a little bit more paradoxical. Even is the fact that yes, for like competitive CCG or TCG kind of games, Hearthstone is very young, but consider that it is also a computer game. For computer games, a 2-year-old game is, I'd say, a middle-aged game. At this point, that's like it's not completely fresh off the boat. It's like so that I've seen other games come and go in the same time that and that had competitive ambitions like at the same time that Hearthstone has stuck around. So I'd say I disagree with the notion that Hearthstone as a game, like a computer game, is still it's still in its infancy.
As a Blizzard game,
I think it does have.
Yeah,
it does.
true.
It has developed though. Like I think it is at the point. And I'm gonna come back to that later, where I'm starting to feel that it's gonna be harder for new players to get into.
Definitely, but that I think is it more than up to the challenge of getting new players in. But yeah, I guess what you're saying in terms of a computer game, it's not particularly a young game. But then in terms of a Blizzard game, it's a baby. It's a complete baby. I mean, when we think about it, Warcraft 3 only really died out in like sort of 2006-ish. That was, I think, was like, it must have been a couple of years after that. It's like 2008 or 9. Basically, there was between 2006 and 2009, there was like the last time that Warcraft 3 was an event at BlizzCon, and that was sort of like the last, like that's when I guess sort of the competitive play at the world stage level that everyone like would hear about it sort of went away. But Hearthstone, this is the second, I guess, official year. So in theory, if we look at it from a Blizzard game and it being a card game, in theory we've got like at least another 6 years, right? That's what I reckon.
Oh, I mean, and the fact that it's on mobile, I think that's gonna carry it as well.
Yeah,
it's just you can just pick it up and play it.
On the Google Play Store, Hearthstone has 5 million downloads.
Wow. Okay.
Not bad.
So that's not just mobile. That would include tablets as well. But like the Android version has been out for that long.
Yeah.
And iOS as well. I mean, factoring that in.
Yeah, I'd like to see one of you boys whip out your iPhone and tell me how many downloads in the iOS store. I don't know. Does it tell you that in the iOS store?
I don't think it does. Hold on.
Man, that's those Apple. What are you doing to us? People like stats. People like to know how popular a game is. But yeah, 5 million downloads, and then 266,000 ratings, which is, considering you don't have to rate an app, you can just be like, nah, screw it, I don't want to rate your silly app. 266,000 people took the time to say Hearthstone is between 1 and 5 stars. Of which case, most, from what I'm looking at, it looks like most people said it's 5 stars.
Okay. About to say, if it's the opposite, bunch of Magic players, man.
That's the thing, though. For mobile standards, that game, there's not much else on the marketplaces for mobile games that would compete in terms of quality.
Clash of Clans, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say Clash of Clans.
That.
Don't they have?
Come
They
on.
have freaking. Isn't it Kate Upton, or is that a different game?
No, yeah, I think
Because
that's
they
her.
have
Yeah.
they have Mr. T to make their advertisements for them. It's just like, fuck that
It's
shit.
a pretty deep game though. Clash of Clans. It's a lot deeper than you would think. But yeah, never mind. Moving on.
Well,
I
Uh,
think we should get to
Yeah.
our topics.
no,
Like,
it was a long intro, but a good one. A good one.
we should be we have just been bumbling around. It's like,
That's all right. That's all
what are we
right.
doing?
Man, but bumbling around is the lifeblood of this podcast.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, it is.
I mean, Tom didn't die in a ditch just so we had to talk about topics.
That's
he died in a
right.
ditch so we could bumble around.
That's right.
I also forgot to say, welcome back, Don. It's nice to see that you weren't dead in a ditch as well.
Yes.
It's confirmed, not dead in a ditch, alive and
He found his way out.
Yeah.
Of said
Yeah,
ditch.
I had a ladder. I don't think it was the Hearthstone ladder, but a
Yeah.
different one.
So
Yeah, that ladder would wreck you, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
You'd
yeah.
still be in that ditch if it was
I
the
just
Hearthstone
be
ladder.
climbing 2 steps up, 1 down, and
so
And every now you get a
just
streak. And
NSA, we don't kill people on the podcast. Just so you're listening. I guess none of you guys have to worry about that, but I do.
really, if I said Mike killed people, like now, the Americans would come after you.
Probably. No, I don't know.
Jesus.
It depends.
It's like so if we don't hear from you next week, we know what happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The
You know,
the
he did it,
CIA.
he might have
That's
died
right.
in the ditch.
If I'm not here, I'm roommates with Edward Snowden. I've got
Oh, yeah.
inside information on
oh shit,
on stuff. You can
On-
trust me. All right.
I'm
I don't
impressed.
know. Good.
Maybe
all
an
right.
embassy wouldn't be too bad, right?
Deck of the
Right.
week. Deck of the week.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so
Let's go.
all right. Enough of rant. Can we say we've burnt our tangent token?
Yes.
All right. It's
All
burned.
of us, like,
Yeah.
collectively
One
burned
big
our tokens
one big collective
in a
token.
gigantic pile. Just
Yeah.
set fire to it.
So
Yeah.
we're down a tangent. All right.
Okay, all right.
Listeners, there you go. One down. You've only got to worry about the rant one, which I'm gonna share. So,
Hey.
all right. So we're gonna get into the deck of the week. All right, and welcome back. This is Deck of the Week. I'm Tac2, joined by Mooshu, Avery, and Don. So this week, Avery, thank you for pointing this out to me because
Yeah.
I've been playing against this deck and didn't realize that it was kind of a different morphing of kind of 2 different decks. I guess it's what do you want to call it? It's a mid range. It's Hunter. You called it a hybrid Hunter. So
That's the name that people are picking up
Okay.
on Hybrid Hunter.
so it's kind of a mixture of mid range Hunter has some ability to be aggro, but this seems more
It's
heavier
more
aggro
aggro.
than a typical
Yeah.
mid range.
it's in the way
Hybrid.
it plays is basically Face Hunter for the early third. I mean, I think the concept of the deck, from what I read from in articles and stuff, is that it's supposed to play as Face Hunter.
Mm.
And when you play as Face Hunter, you play in a certain way. You start because I mean, in terms of like Hearthstone theory, Face Hunter decks are decks that trade cards very liberally in order to deal life, and they give up board very liberally as well to do damage. I mean damage, not life. Sorry. So to deal a lot of damage. So it makes sense as a slower deck that's trying to beat Sid deck that trying to beat Face Hunter, that you would also trade your cards very liberally to save yourself damage.
Yeah.
So for example, instead of trying to find the value shield slam, because there is no value shield slam, you shield slam like a leper gnome or something when you can, right?
Mm.
But then this deck will quietly, and so the concept behind this hybrid hunter is that you play face, you take a player's face, boom, low threat, boom, high main, and you have no more answers left to deal with these cards, and then
Yeah.
you're screwed. And they just get in 6 every turn, and eventually you die. That's
And-
the concept of the deck.
And that's what's been throwing me off because I've seen this week, especially, a lot of well, Hunter and Zoo especially. We talked about Zoo a lot last week. I've been seeing him everywhere. And then Handlock. We'll get to talk about some of those decks later, but that's what I've been noticing because I was doing the same thing with. Now, thankfully, I've been playing a lot of mid-range Hunter, and so I've got a lot of early game to deal with the early game, but then I have answers, for the end. So I've got my equality contacts or whatever.
Mid-range Paladin, you mean?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, mid-range Paladin.
Yeah.
So when I saw this, now I've seen some people even play Dr. Boom in this deck. And now that threw me for a loop. But yeah, I mean, so how viable do you think this is? It's how viable do you think the end game is, considering that, and we know Face Hunter's good enough.
Okay, everyone's saying this deck is tier 1. Like, it is the best deck on ladder right now. Both like Tempo Storm's latest Meta Snapshot ranks this as number 1. If I'm not wrong, I saw a similar list on the Liquid Half Power rankings as well. The reason why this deck's so good is because it just beats everything in the meta. It has the Face Hunter elements fit quite well in, and it still plays with a face plan, but a more sustained face plan, because your Piloted Shredders are never going to trade. You're going to be going face. Your High Mains never going to trade. You're going to be going face. It's just that they're difficult to remove threats. And I've always said this to my friends, especially back in the Undertaker era of mid-range Hunter. Mid-range Hunter is not really a mid-range deck. It's a phase deck with more sustained damage as the game goes on. And so this deck kind of represents that really well. A big reason why it became so successful is because it kind of has the best of both worlds. It has early game stuff against, it has the early aggression that can take a lot of decks off. Like, for example, Druid, certain builds of Paladin, Handlock, and the face part of the deck is good against those things. But against decks that have ability to sustain or huge amounts of life gain, like for example Control Warrior, High Main is a hell of a card against Control Warrior. So it kind of has some game there as well. One of the big innovations in building this deck, I felt, was putting Freezing Trap and only Freezing Trap.
Yeah.
Because the reason why, and to my understanding, the reason why that's there is not, obviously it's a tempo play, but specifically to be a very, very useful trap against the Patron Warrior combo. Because when you put an explosive or a snake, you allow the Patron combo to go off with the Warsong Commander, but when you put Freezing, it goes back to the hand, it costs 7. So it's very, very difficult to combo off in that situation. So that's one big reason why this deck's on top. It has both the good, sustained, difficult, very sticky, very difficult to remove minions that many, many decks have problems with. And it has the early aggression as well that also many decks have problems with. So it's the best of both worlds. Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be much less liable now that the cat's out of the bag. It's just, as we were talking before about people learning how to play against Patron Warrior, if people are a little bit suspicious that there might be a separate half to this Hunter decks, he may have High Mains, he may have Low Earth, maybe I should hold something, maybe I should hold a Shield Slam in order to deal with something.
I don't know, man. I still feel like it's going to be good in this situation. I feel like to me, what I've been seeing is that the counter to the how people learn to play against this deck and how they counter it is switching to Face Hunter, because Face Hunter is just a faster version of this deck, right?
I will stick with Face Hunter.
But then when everyone starts switching to Face Hunter, that's when people start getting weak to Control Warrior again, which then means that people will start moving back to this Hunter version. So it's kind of like a cycle, and that's how meta games are created.
You just want to play Control Warrior, don't you? You're trying to get everyone onto this this hybrid Hunter, so then everyone counters as Face Hunter. So then you are 2 steps ahead of the meta and playing Control Warrior the entire time. Avery, rank 1 legend, May 2015.
I don't think so, man. I'm not even playing Control Warrior anymore. I kind of swapped out to Handlock, but yeah, but there's certain peculiarities to the lists. I'm not sure how good Arcane Golem is in the deck. In the list that I linked, and probably will be in the show notes, there's an Arcane Golem. I personally don't like it. I'd rather have the second bow. Because
sure.
But maybe because I play it differently. I play it a bit more mid-range, and I don't I only Wolf Rider on 3 when there's no minions on board and I board control. I try and maintain board control very heavily playing this deck. Because it's also a hell of a deck to maintain board control with. Glaive Zukas, Haunted Creepers, Knife Jugglers. Unleash the Hounds and stuff. They're both all, and Pilot Shredder as well. They're all very good cards to maintain board control with. And it's only when you have good board control that high main becomes crazy. Like you play high main on empty board, like that's insane. So, which is why I don't really like Arcane Golem. I wouldn't ever play it early, and so I don't think I would ever play it at all. Like if you want more burst, why not like a second quick shot, which is just more flexible, or like a second bow, which allows for like more value and board control oriented stuff. But I mean, it depends on the build. The concept of the deck is clear. Just what cards you prefer and how you wish to build it. Yeah.
I've had a lot of success against a lot of aggro decks, but since seeing this one this week a lot, I've had in my mid-range paladin deck a oh god, why can't I think of the name of the card? One that steals your secrets.
Kazan Mystic.
Thank you, Kazan Mystic. Yeah. I was always running one of those, but I also threw in a why can't I think of these cards? I just had them in my head. Death Lord.
Yeah.
The 2/8. That card, I've had people just quit turn 4 because they put it down. They're like, oh god, I got nothing. It's backfired a couple times. I played against a Dragon Hunter or a Dragon Paladin, and he killed it. And turn 3, he has a Chromagus on the board. But
wow!
I said thank you and conceded. I mean, what can you do? But the amount of times that the Death Lord has died and out pops a anti-heal bot or something like that, it's like that gives me the win as well. But just for the aggro matchup, those two cards have won me a lot of my games.
I agree.
But that's not to say that this. Now I'm building it just for that. So handlocks are it's not a good card against handlock. It's not a good card, I guess, against I don't know, rogue. I'm trying to think some of the oil rogues. I haven't seen a lot of them, but
I think it's pretty. I think Death Lord's pretty good against oil.
I guess if they're running tokens, especially. Yeah,
I played some oil rogue today.
Nothing good to come out.
Yeah,
and that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this deck. So here's a question: How can you tell? At what point in this deck, when you're playing against it, can you tell if this is the hybrid or if it's just face? What do you feel like is the giveaway? Shredder. Okay.
After they played Shredder, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say too.
So
when
turn
you
forward.
see Freezing Trap.
Okay.
Oh,
that as well. Yes, that's true. Freezing is a very big indicator. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the big thing to not lose your games is to be aware that the trap could be freezing, because what loses games randomly for you is when you think like it's definitely explosive, but it turns out it's freezing. So you build like your board in a certain way to beat explosive, but actually it was freezing the whole time, and you could have procced the secret way earlier and not have the loss of life there, or some kind of situation like that. Just be aware that the secret might not be explosive, and I think the matchup is going to, even just with that awareness alone, your matchup is going to improve by like 3 to 4%. Yeah.
Or you could be 2 steps ahead of the meta like me and play Misdirection and have a situation where the enemy hunter attacks me in the face with his bow and doesn't have a board, and I don't have a board, so it's just 2 face hunters facing one another. So he attacks me in the face, so Misdirection doesn't proc, and then so he plays Leroy Jenkins, attacks, and hits himself in the face, and it's just like worth it every time. It's just things. Its Misdirection is so good, and it improves the Druid matchup.
Dude, I have a funny Misdirection story, man. I thought about you when it happened to me. So I was playing Handlock. I was playing not Handlock. I was playing what was it? This Hybrid Hunter, and the guy had a secret out, right? So I was like, I had a Hunter Creeper, and I was like, oh, I gotta pop the Creeper. This is terrible. And I Glaivezooka it and everything, so it was quite a big deal that I was gonna lose it. But I had to proc the secret because like you proc it on the turn so that you don't allow Eagle Hornbow to get value on another turn or stuff like that. So I attacked and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be so bad. And then boom, not freezing, not explosive, Misdirection. And then the guy turned, like, it was a 2/2 Hunter Creeper. It turned around, hit my face for 2. And then I was like, this was much better than I expected.
There is definitely a drawback in Misdirection.
Because I mean, like, if it was explosive, if it were like explosive, I would have taken 2 and I would have like lost my 2/2 and it would have become 2/1s, which is prone to explosive trap. Prone to Unleash the Hound. Sorry. If it was freezing trap, it would have went back to my hand and I would have played it. Misdirection was like the best possible outcome there, and I thought straight away to Matt and how he likes to play Misdirection, and dude, it's very situational, man. I mean, those things happen off mad scientist, you know.
Mm.
It's much better to play it than to have it come off mad scientist. Like, because misdirection, you need that little bit more control just to.
Oh yeah. I agree.
It's been a bunch of situations against Druid when they've got like a Shade and a Druid of the Claw out, and I've been able to get them to kill each other with misdirection. And the best thing is when they hit one of their minions, it'll and they have a weapon, because of the way it works, like they'll kill the minion. Because
the weapon's unsheathed.
Yeah, the weapon's unsheathed and still just wreck people. Misdirection is what you want.
Which I find is a very strange mechanic in Hearthstone. I've never really understood why, but yeah, whatever.
Yep, it just is how it is, I guess. We need we need that comprehensive rulebook out of the card by card and effects and situations. That's really what we want. Is just like, we don't care if it's 1,000 pages long. We just want the Hearthstone comprehensive rulebook of all the interactions and things like that.
Can you imagine how difficult that would be to make? I guess if you're an engineer on Team 5, it's not a big deal because you just know because you wrote the code. But
I'm guessing even the programmers wouldn't know all the details that they put in. It's like there's probably documented somewhere in the internal wiki, but I'm guessing even they wouldn't know. Like, just they'd be needing to look this stuff up. I think. I
guess like Bane of Doom and Warsong Commander are kind of good examples of, oh, we didn't realize that was missing or didn't do that kind of thing.
Bane of Doom, I think, was a really good fix. It's just going from like complete obscurity to, oh yeah, no, you can play this card again because you could pop out Mal'Ganets.
I didn't even know the card existed until the change.
And there's a lot of stuff like that. I recently watched a video by, I think it was Noxious. He did a video a while back on how Blizzard has handled bringing some cards in that make you play cards that usually wouldn't see play. Like Muster for Battle is a prime example. You know, you get a Light's Justice for free. They realize it's not good enough on its own, but if they put it on top of a card on its own would be good enough, it makes the card even better.
Like Light Luminaru as well, right? You like Warden.
Or Blingtron. Blingtron lets you see and play with a lot of weapons that you usually just wouldn't fit into your deck. That kind of stuff. And it's really cool. Like, and Bane of Doom is one of those cards as well. Like, because there's now more demons and the demon pool in general. Now here's the thing. Bane of Doom is so good because it interacts with the demon pool in a way that completely eliminates the drawbacks that demons usually have. Because demons all have a trade-off for their power. But Bane of Doom circumvents those drawbacks. So the pool in general that you can get out of this card is just solid.
Yeah, I need to look up
what good stuff in there.
I think we talked about what the percentage of getting a
we did.
Decent or awesome demon are better than getting a terrible.
It's really high.
Okay.
It's really good.
It's good. Yeah.
It makes it 100% worth playing.
Okay.
Like, even if you get the that 4/4 that gains 2/2 every time you take damage.
That card is good already. That's good.
Yeah, I reckon
that's a good card.
Yeah. I think sort of Succubus is where it's anything lower than Succubus, and that's when you're like, I like hitting Pit Lord. I think is a really good, because Pit Lord and Dread Infernal are basically the same thing, and that's where that's a really good. I think getting either of those and you've done well.
That's a game
high. Yeah, definitely.
Getting a 6/6 is just
tempo play.
Yeah.
If you take out something like if you particularly in conveniently in a hunter matchup, if you take out a Knife Juggler with a Bane of Doom and someone at 6/6, that's when it's sort of like, I'm going to win this game. Because you start, smacking away at the even if they have the Savannah Highmane, you can trade off your newfound 6/6 for a Highmane and just butcher the 2/2s. And you can be like, screw you, Hybrid Hunter, I'm going to win this game anyway. And, I played a crap ton of Face Hunter this week, and I was saying before the podcast recording that I lived and died by the sword this week. In that after paladin mishap, I was like, no, screw it. I don't care what's going on anymore. I kept losing with like a bunch of different decks. Couldn't make any ground in the ladder. So I was like, all right, we'll go back to basics and play Face Hunter. And went 9-1 and went from like rank 8 to rank 5 in like an hour and a half. And it was just like,
Wow.
boys, my job is done.
I
And
hate
then
you.
Then like a day later, I was like, oh yeah, all right, we'll continue the run. We'll continue the run in, and we'll go all the way to like 4 or 3 or something. And then I lost like 6 or 7 games in a row, just Face Hunter versus like Mage and crap like that. And it's just I couldn't get it to work, and I was just like, but yeah, live by the sword, die by the sword. I intend to pick up the sword that is this hybrid hunter and have a wave and see how we go.
I basically just while you guys were talking redid my Face Hunter to make it into the hybrid hunter.
Give that a try.
And by doing that, I actually realized how similar they are. It's like it really is just you're taking 5 cards out and you're putting double shredder, double high main, and double step in there. That's how you do. Like that's what you do basically. That's all you do. Because I had Wolf Riders in there anyway, and so,
I mean, best 6-drop in the game.
Is it really?
Well,
I think I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
Thorson?
Oh yeah, no, Thorson be that'd be a
Sylvanas?
tricky one actually. No, I think High Main's
I
better.
think High Main's probably better than Sylvanas. Yeah, I agree.
But no, Thorson. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah, Thorson's probably better.
Well,
Second best.
what about non-legendary? Let's go there. I mean, I think Fire Elemental's pretty
Planetous Sky
good.
Golem.
Maybe.
High Main?
Sky Golem, High Main. I think I think High Main still.
Yeah, because I think the 2/2/2s is better than like a crap 4-drop.
Yeah, there are very few crap 4 drops, but I think it's the 6/5 as well that makes it quite strong.
What about Temple Enforcer?
Wait, was
That's
that
an
the?
I don't think so, man.
No,
Isn't
that
that-
the
that's
first card?
Broski. Yeah, it's
Is
a
that
priest
the
card.
next? Yeah.
Huh?
What noise does Templar Enforcer make? It's
Oh, yeah, the priest card.
Yeah.
It's a decent card in arena, but I don't know about.
no, but we're saying
Constructed.
popped out of a shredder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, so that's popped out of a shredder. Yeah, so it won't be Temple
Yeah.
Enforcer then. Okay. This is 4-drop.
Before drop.
Shield Maiden.
Yeah,
Shield
well,
Maiden in Warrior,
Shield
right?
Maiden
Like
is-
honestly, Shield Maiden is so underrated. That card is actually amazing to me.
The
Yeah,
problem
but-
with
Not bad.
Shield Maiden is it's only used in Control Warrior.
Then that's
Yeah,
like
that's definitely a problem. I gotta put it in Hybrid Hunter. See how we go.
No,
I mean,
yeah, but no.
like the old Control Warrior, like way before Next, was like what? Early game weapons, some removal, and finishers.
Mm.
And when they deal with your limited finishers, the game's over. You've lost because you can't kill them. And almost all your games go to fatigue, right? But you don't have it because you don't have any mid-rangey minions. But now you got things like Belcher and like Shield Maiden, things that like are kind of not really worth spending removal on. It just makes the deck so much better, man. Like Control Warrior got so much of a boost from Shield Maiden.
Yes, it did.
Like, especially after Face Hunter as well. Like, it's a threat plus against you 5 life. It's everything you want against Face Hunter.
And,
as well.
and it gives you an activator for your shield slam.
Oh yeah,
I know
and that as well.
some people are running less of the shield blocks. You know, maybe they're
Oh yeah,
just
to fit
running
in
one
like
or-
weirder things, right? Like
Yeah.
shredders and stuff. Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Crush. I was for a while anyway. That has worked out so many times for me. I don't know.
It was a tad too expensive.
Yeah, I
does-
mean, in a control matchup, it's amazing. Yeah, in a face
Oh,
decks,
definitely.
it's horrible, obviously. But anyway, so
All right, I'll be done with deck.
yeah, so any other thoughts on this hybrid hunter?
Try it.
Second best.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
six
so
drop in the game.
basically, for those of you out there, if you didn't really understand, think of I'm not going to name all the cards, but think of a face hunter and take out some of the higher end cards and put in double Savannah Hymain, a Lotheb, and then 2 of Pilot Shredder.
Fun fact: it makes it cheaper because you don't need to put Leroy in there.
Yeah, sure. And as far as traps go, I have seen some people run the snake trap. You know, maybe a one of, at least I've seen. But I think you're right, Avery. That's weak against the patron word
Yeah.
matchup. So
The beauty of traps, though, is that like a lot of how good they are is dependent on whether people expect them. So because they will make certain lines of play that work really well if everyone assumes that it's this trap. So it's like kind of like a lot of these decks, you know, they make it big and they like so to speak cheese you out because they play traps you completely don't expect. So like that's how Matt gets a lot of his wins with misdirection, for example. So maybe you know a few like weeks down we find that freezing trap, you know, everyone knows it's going to be there in this deck after they see like the high mains and stuff. Maybe it's time to switch it up. There's some snake traps or explosives. They're not going to expect it.
yeah,
And that's how like you're going to cheese people out again.
Just wait until I make one legend with my Tempo Hunter featuring Snap.
yes.
It's gonna be a fun time, and people are gonna be like, "What?" It's gonna shit. I'm gonna shit.
No,
on
honestly, man, snipe actually blows me out so much. Like when I get it right, every single time I get sniped, I get like destroyed.
Yeah.
Snap! Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to try. I'm gonna have to try Snap now, just to see. Be good. It'd be good fun.
All right.
Well, I'm going to put this the link to this in the show notes. So if you're out there listening, you'll have a link to it. And it's a relatively cheap deck. I mean, looking at it says it's 1,080 dust to make. Is that taking into consideration the fact that you don't have to craft the Nax cards? You just have to buy them, or
probably, yeah.
Okay.
I'm quite, yeah.
So, but I'm thinking, what is it? It's only Loatheb and only Hunter Creeper that are really not quote craftable or you know whatever, but still that's a relatively very cheap deck.
And to play Animal Companion, you need to like hit level 6 Hunter.
Okay, yeah. So just hit ladder with it. All right, so that's deck of the week. We'll be right back with Meta Anatomy. DRC would like to thank Brainiacs for their support of this podcast. If you have a tech idea for improving your business's workflow, Brainiacs can provide a turnkey solution to specifically fit your needs. You can contact them at www.brainiux.com. Welcome to Meta Anatomy, your one weekly stop for everything meta in Hearthstone. I'm Tech2, joined by Mooshu, Avery, and Don. So this week, we're going to go ahead and start with the decks, and we'll just go right into it. Handlock has... we talked about this. I played it week before last and did very well with it. Last week did horrible with it, so I stopped and went back to mid-range Paladin. And now I'm getting stomped by it. It is back in full force. What is going on, guys?
I haven't played Handlock since before you could do the 20 damage combo with Faceless Leroy and
so broken.
Ugh.
That was broken.
That was I like to refer to that as the golden age of Handlock. But it's nice to see that there's a second golden age of Handlock.
Second coming, as you will.
Yes.
So basically, the reason why the deck's doing so well again, the big reason why Handlock people started trying Handlock again was because Patron was a thing, and Handlock's actually pretty strong against Patron because of if you play because you have huge minion which are taunts, and typically against a warrior deck, the first minion you're going to be playing is either Twilight Drake or Mountain Giant. So that and you're going to snowball from there. So you're not going to have things that are easy to kill off with the Patron to let it proc and stuff. Secondly, even if you do let it proc, Hellfire just shuts that down completely, and Shadow Flame as well. And then people started playing it, I think, and essentially they realized that, hold on a moment, this is not just good against Patron. If I tech it in a way that is very consistent and I don't do all the funky control stuff that typical old Handlock versions try and do, and I just make it as consistent as I possibly can with very anti-aggro stuff going on, it can basically beat Hunter as well and hold its own. And the threats that are already existing in the deck that we don't need, basically the versions that people are playing now, they don't need Jiraxes, they don't need Siphon Souls, they don't need Sylvanas. They just go for a very, very consistent game plan. Have 6 to 8 big threats, taunt them up, board clears, and other very, very efficient cards, and that's just all the deck is now. It's down to its core. And I've been playing this a lot for the past, I'm gonna say, 9 hours, and I ranked up from more than that. Let's say about 12 hours. I got from rank. I was somewhere at the start of rank 4, and I got it to rank 2 in very, very short amount of time. This is actually super, super good. Druid's coming. We're going to talk about it later. Druid's kind of coming back, but basically this kind of beats. I mean, it has a reasonable game against Druid. It has a good game versus Patron. A reasonable game against like Control Warrior. A good game versus Zoo. And again, a reasonable game against Hunter. And these are all like the big decks are floating around. Oh, and it kind of stomps on Paladin as well, but that's kind of a side point.
Oh yeah,
no one's really playing that.
Yeah, yes, put salt in the wound there, Avery. Thank you.
This deck's insane. Like as of now, Handlock I feel is a very, very good deck to ladder with. I mean, I guess one of the big factors of maybe not a lot of players playing Handlock is that it's not exactly very cheap, but yeah, I mean, if you own the deck, just build up the version that everyone's playing. Maybe we'll link it or something and try it out. It's doing really well as of now, and unless the meta changes again, then it's going to be a good deck. At least top like 3 or 4 decks to be laddering with for like the next at least 3 weeks. Yeah.
So my question is, and I think part of maybe what I was struggling with is the your mulligan. What's the mulligan strategy against some of the, I guess, popular meta decks right now? What do we think? I mean,
I haven't really figured this one out.
I think I think I get mulligan screwed on some games. I feel like it's either a wash, either way. Like I just destroy the person or lose against them, but I just don't seem to have the cards that I need when I need them. I don't have my Hellfires until turn 4 when I'm at 3 health against like a face hunter, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I got a way to kill myself now.
Personally, with this deck, against like decks that's slower than you, so like not slower than you, like slowish, so like druids. Let me see, druid. Wait, let me look at all the classes of Hearthstone. Okay, so druid, warrior, rogue, priest, and pally. You want to go for Twilight Drakes and Mountain Giants. Okay, against Pally, maybe it could be like the Ebola Paladin. So like maybe you got a hedge and you watch how many cards they mulligan to decide on that factor. If they don't mulligan that many, that means that they are, I think, like a more mid-rangey Pally because they're willing to like keep some like number of cards in their hand. Actually, I'm not very sure about Paladin. Against Paladin, I think right now it's very safe to go for like a Twilight Drake Mountain Giants. And against, okay, this is where it starts getting tricky. Against Hunter, you want to go for Mortal Coils, Dark Bombs, Hellfires. If you have a Owl, I like keeping Owl as well personally, but it also depends on like if you're starting first or starting second. If you're starting, actually, what other cards you're keeping lah? I like keeping Sunfury Protector and Asian Watcher as well.
Yeah.
Mountain is a definite throw. It's horrendous. I personally don't like keeping Molten Giants, though I know some people do. I don't think it's a viable like option to like waste an early slot on the Molten Giant, because that's one less option you have to like actually not come to a point whereby you need Molten Giants. But yeah, like Mortal Coils, Ivy Owl, Ancient Watcher, Sunfury Protector, Hellfire. Those are the ones you want. If your hand's like super insane, you could keep a heal bot, but I don't think that that's a viable plan. Yeah. It's a bit too slow. Against Warlock, that's the very, very like exciting one, right? Because it's both Handlock and Zoo, and they both call for very different plans. Against Handlock, you again want to go for the Twilight Drake Mountain Giant plan, but you also want Big Game Hunter, so that's like iffy. And against Zoo, you kind of want to go for the like anti-aggro plan. So typically against Warlock, I watch how many cards they mulligan. If they mulligan a lot, that means that they're probably Handlock, right? Because if like you're playing Zoo and you want to curve out, that means that like I have a 2-drop and I'm starting first, I'll keep the 2-drop, I'll throw the other 2. I'll throw
I'm gonna try to get a 1-drop, try to get a 3-drop.
Or if they have a 1-drop, like multiple 1-drops, they'll keep them and they'll throw like other things. So they tend to mulligan less than Handlock. Handlock like has to search for the cards that they need. So like if you mulligan your whole hand, I mean depends how like ambitious you are. You could decide off the mulligan. You can decide just I'm going to play it safe and mulligan for Zoo. Typically what I do is I like to hedge. So if I have a Dark Bomb in my hand already, I'll keep the Big Game Hunter, something like that. Or I have the Hellfire in my hand already, I'll keep the Mountain Giant. Like just kind of like I'll kind of be decent against both sides and see how it goes for me. Kind of a way to mulligan. Like generally if I have a Dark Bomb in my hand, I'm quite willing to keep things that I would want if they were handlocked, like Mountain Giant. So yeah, but the mulligan for Warlock's very tricky with handlock. With other attacks, it's pretty straightforward. If it's aggro, you go for your aggro cards. If it's control, you go for your big threats. The only different one slightly is okay, mage. Yeah, mage is a bit weird as well.
Yeah,
mage.
I was about to say that's probably that's a weakness I've noticed is because it doesn't matter if you get low health, they just go around your taunts with spells. So.
And that's why I don't think Tempo Mage is that great a matchup for handlock. Fireballs are. I mean, that is the same reason why Mech Mage wasn't that good a matchup for handlock, which is why it disappeared, right, for a while. Because Fireballs and Frostbolts were just too good against a deck like handlock that plans to go down to like 12 to 14 health range. I guess I would keep like what I really like against Tempo Mage is the early Ancient Watcher, Silence the Watcher. Because once you stop the Mana Worm and the Sorcerer's Apprentice, then like the deck kind of runs out of gas already. They can't pressure you. So
yeah, I think that was another thing a lot of players don't realize you can do, and it can be a strong play against the right matchup, is silencing your own Ancient Watcher and using it as a 4/5 body, turn 3 or whatever it may be.
It's like a Silver Hand Knight. You got a 2/1 as well. Like okay, it's not exactly a Silver Hand Knight, but something like that. Close enough.
Yeah.
For 2 cards, it's quite strong.
Yeah.
And the reason why also you use a silencer so liberally in aggro matchups is because in aggro matchups there are not many things you want to be silencing. It's only in control matchups that you don't really want to be like against Warrior. You definitely don't like Coin Watcher, Silence Watcher. Like that's very terrible play. You need to save the silence for something more useful and the Watcher for like a Shadow Flame or a taunt up later in the game or something. But against aggro, I think you want to go for this plan so that you get on the board earlier, so you don't need to like dig for removal. You don't need to like definitely rely on Hellfire or Shadow Flame to win the game. Yeah. So that's handlock for me.
Boys, any other thoughts? Don, Mooshu?
Yeah, I think he summarized it quite nicely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes the World Cup matchup more interesting as well because for other ones because a few days ago or just the other week, basically the expectation when you were facing a Warlock was okay, it's going to be Zoo, and you were going to mulligan accordingly, and now the insecurity is back, and just in general, I think it makes the game more exciting. So
I agree 100%. The last few weeks of Hearthstone have been really, really fun. I like not knowing what it used to be, what was it, pre even Nax, it was like, okay, it's one of 3 decks I'm playing up against, whatever the class was. There's 3 decks. Now we've got we talked about this last week. Mage is like 5. So really, really exciting stuff. All right, we'll go on to the next one. And this one actually leads into a listener question. We're going to talk about the Patron Warrior. So James W. writes in just like you can, emailing us at mail@deathrattlecrew.com. James says, hey guys, I've been playing a lot of Zoolock this season so far, but the rise of the Patron Warrior has become a bit of an issue. I know that Control Warrior can do very well against aggro decks like mine, but Patron decks more or less feed off these same decks. So my question is, how can I tell what I'm playing against before it's too late, and how do you recommend playing against a Patron Warrior as a Zoolock? Thanks.
I love that question.
So, guys,
so
let's talk about we'll talk about Patron Warrior first, and then we'll kind of dig into James' question here. If you haven't seen Patron Warrior already, I'd be surprised. Basically, it's a Control Warrior with an end game that relies on Warsong Commander and then throwing Patron Warriors out, getting a bunch of them on the board, or putting Frothing Berserkers on the board and getting a super high combo. And it's I would argue it's sort of like Math Warrior, but
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's not all versions like the Control Warrior shell, which is now being known as like Tempo version of the deck, which is like the Control Warrior kind of framework. The other version is a cycle version where you draw like a lot of cards. Like you just play a lot of cards to cycle through your stuff. So like Loot Hoarders and Gnomish Inventors. So yeah, that's another version of Patron Warrior that exists as well.
So let's go ahead and talk about like when do you realize that it's not a Control Warrior and that this is a a patron? What turn or what cards are played? Because some people say that it comes down to the Acolyte of Pain, but I don't agree with that because Control Warrior plays
I think
those.
Turn 3 is usually like the pretty safe turn when you should know if they've got a decent patron start. But before that, if they ever hit you in the face with the Fiery War Axe, it's more than like if they hit you turn 2, turn 3 with Fiery War Axe, it's more than likely it's going to be Patron Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's kind of like because it usually indicates that they have a Death Bite in their hand and they want to try and get the value for their weapon and switch to Death Bite. Turn 3 is usually the turn you'll figure it out because that's when they can play things like Frothing Berserker, or they can play their Dread Corsair for 1 mana if they have a Fiery War Axe out. So it's usually it's pretty early on. But
Loot Hoarder as well is a good indicator.
Yes, very good.
Very true.
Yeah.
If you see a Loot Hoarder, not Control Warrior.
Yeah.
There's one more thing that's very subtle, but definitely shows that it's a Patron Warrior. If on turn 2 you haven't played anything, so say, I don't know, man, what class would you be? Like, say you tap on turn 2, your hand lock, you tap on turn 2, and they play a weapon instead of armoring up, they are definitely Patron Warrior. Because most Patron lists don't run Shield Slam, so there's no need for them to armor up. So, like, Common Wisdom and like a lot of pros, how like on streams and stuff, they kind of educated the masses. Like, you don't need to really armor up because the armor doesn't really matter. So you just play a weapon here, develop the weapon, and for like save the mana in a future turn when you need the weapon. So if they weapon up turn 2 and you don't have anything to use the weapon on, and they don't hit your face with it, right? Even though they don't hit your face with it, they're probably still Patron Warrior because they decided not to armor up because they don't have Shield Slam, so there's no need to armor up. Yeah,
that's another point. If you see a Shield Slam, if you see a Shield Slam, it's probably Control Warrior. The absence of Shield Slam usually means Patron. Like if you can play he said he was playing Zoo. So if you play like a Flame Emperor Knife Juggler and it doesn't get Shield Slam, then either they've got a really crappy draw as Control Warrior or it's Patron Warrior. In terms of like playing against it, I think the main thing that feeds the Patron Warrior is things that don't have 3 attack. If you have a lot of creatures up that don't have 3 attack, that's when they can use those against you. They can spawn a bunch of patrons that are either buffing the Frothing Berserker or generating a shit ton of armor for Armor Smith to then kill you next turn when they can't die.
I think the way to play against Patron Warrior is to whenever you realize it's Patron, so like turn 3 or maybe turn 4 when you see like, I don't know, Gnomish Inventor or something like that, or Dread Corsair as an indicator. You want to, because they're a combo deck, they're not a control deck, they can't really play a long game. Like, they're not intending to play a long game. They plan to like wait out till they get a combo and then like outvalue you or kill you within that period of time. So as a Zoolog, and I played this matchup like a lot on like last season. Because they fill off a lot of things off 3 attack. So whenever you can Defender of Argus up things above 3 attack, do so. Even if those are not the most value in terms of like trading on the board. Secondly, try and be more like the common strategy to win a Zoolog against Green Patron is to kind of ignore their board as much as you can. There are only a few priority targets you need to care about and waste time dealing with. Frothing Berserkers, Warsong Commander, actual like the Patron card if for some stupid reason they play it empty. If they play something like Acolyte of Pain or something like Gnomish Inventor and you don't need to deal with it because like you will not lose too terribly to it if you don't do anything about it. You don't need to trade, you just go face. Like you want to pressure them as much as you can so that they have as least time as possible to draw into their combo.
And if you have to implosion something and it doesn't kill it, make sure you follow it up because anything that you leave damage is just fueling battle rage, which really helps it cycle. So make sure you kill things dead. Don't kill things to 1 HP. Kill them dead. Just gone.
Well, what else is there?
Beware of the Gromash as well. Just because they've used both Warsong Commanders. But when they've used both Warsong Commanders, you're pretty likely to win. But if you're sitting around sort of like the 10 to 15 HP mark, that's when Gromash might come in and surprise you because there's some pretty high damage turnarounds with Gromash, particularly when they hold the Death Spire and you get a 14 damage turn.
Try not to leave. Oh, sorry. You finished?
No, I'm good. Okay.
Okay. Try not to leave unstable ghouls up. You don't want to give them like whirlwind effects, if you can. If you can like clear it, even though like maybe you lose one extra minion, you should. Basically, I feel like you should think about like when you play Zoo against Patron. It's like how Zoo used to be versus Hunter. You want to like play 2 to 3 minions and don't like commit too much to the board because Unleash will wreck you otherwise, right? Especially when Unleash was 2 and there was Starving Buzzard, like you get completely destroyed. It's the same thing as in this because when you have more minions on the board, it allows for more Patron shenanigans. It also allows for more Whirlwind plus Frothing Berserker kind of shenanigans. So, like, if you don't have to Implosion, don't. If you don't need to play so many minions and your clock is like roughly the same, like 5 to 6 turns, you're gonna kill him. Like, if you evaluate the damage you're dealing, just don't try and commit too many things to the board. If you really want to commit things to the board, make sure you defender them up so that they have 3 attack as best as you can. Yeah.
So
is that about it? I think that's about
I think so. So James, thanks for writing in. To kind of go on with that, at what point do you think that you say, okay, I need to turn down, my aggro, as it were, and not go all in, or do you just go all in and hope that you kill them before they get the combo off? At what point do you go, crap, I gotta tone it down? You know what I mean?
When they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think because they don't benefit from having lower HP sort of thing.
Okay.
Like, so you just got to keep going because the particularly the cycle part of at least against Zoo, the amount of time it takes them to cycle through their deck, I don't think you're going to be able to outlast them as Zoo. Like maybe with Mal'Ganis, the Mal'Ganis Demon Lock kind of Zoo, you have more of a chance because you have those later turns. But traditional Zoo, particularly, you're probably at like a disadvantage. So the quicker the game goes, the better for you because in terms of the combo, they're going to have to wait till usually around sort of turn 6, 7, 8 is when you start getting threatened by either like a Frothing Berserker combo or a billion patrons coming at you.
Mm.
So if you can get one, basically, the harder you can hit the earlier, the better, right? Basically,
save your bursts. I think like don't power overwhelming something stupid early just so you can clear it. Like don't go for like the value power overwhelming. I think you save it to burst them. Like you win this through damage, you don't win it through attrition because they can attrition you out.
Yeah. Just by function of like the armor and getting some sweet AOE armor.
And weapons as 2-for-1s all the time. Like you always lose. If you can avoid tapping, I think you don't tap as well. Like so you don't like randomly die from 18, which is very like likely. If you have a lot of minions, 18 health, he plays like what? He has 8 mana. He goes like Warsong Commander, and say like he Thorison earlier, like Warsong Commander, Frothing Berserker, double Frothing Berserker, or single Frothing Berserker with 2 or 3 whirlwind effects. That's holy son of a gun. That's a shitload of damage right there. You could just die for no reason, So I think it won't waste your Defender of Arguses as well. They're very important.
Sometimes you just like I played like 75 games of Patron Warrior that's how many I counted. I reckon there's about 10 or 15 I didn't count. So getting close to 100 games of Patron Warrior. And sometimes when you play Thorison, they just die the next turn. It just particularly if they can't.
So sick in Patron, seriously.
Yeah. And particularly if they can't clear Patron, they're almost certainly dead. If I'm getting a good Thorison, because with the 5 damage, it's just it's just so good. It's almost too good. Thorison is definitely MVP in that deck.
Yep, completely. It's like your Wild Growth and Druid, right? Like the deck's so good with Wild Growth and so bad without. The difference of having landed a turn 6 Thorison and not landing a turn 6 Thorison is so huge for how the Patron Warrior matchup plays out. It's insane.
Yeah. It lets you plan. It lets you so obviously the Patron Warrior plan is, turn 8 and 9 explode with patrons. That's with no mana manipulation or anything. But as soon as Thorison pops out, that turn 8 and 9 looks so much better because instead of being like just a patron and a Warsong Commander, it's like a patron, a Warsong Commander and a Frothing Berserker,
Yep.
or like
And you can fit in like a Battle Fury or something.
it just gets really, really scary because whirlwinds become free and it's scary.
Does that deck run any raging wagons? Because I have some in mind.
I've seen some before. I haven't seen them recently though.
Okay.
It's like a win more kind of card, I guess. Like I'd rather have. It's like it gives you a similar out. Like obviously, I think if you're going to play Raging Worgens, you don't want to play Frothing Berserkers. I think it's one or the other.
Mm.
And Berserker's so much better.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah.
So
it's more.
Yeah, I put them in because I didn't have Frothing Berserkers, and that's why. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. It's a fine substitute. It just changes it a bit. And obviously, in some situations, decks would be better because the real money shot for Frothing Berserker is when you get like an 8 minion whirlwind when they've like overextended or something, and you just kill them in the face dead. Whereas Raging Worgen would benefit a lot from Cruel Taskmaster and Inner Rage, whereas Frothing Berserker only like mildly benefits from those things.
True.
So it definitely has better synergy with the internal cards. It relies less on your board and their board.
And something that you brought up, Avery, I want to reiterate and make sure I understood it correctly. When a Patron Warrior plays an Acolyte of Pain, let's say Zoo, or let's say any deck, do we recommend just ignoring it and going for face? Not trying to like what
if they play turn 2 like Warex, clear your minion, turn 3 Acolyte, at that point you can't really determine what it is, right? So I think in that case you have to clear it, because if you can't identify that it's Patron. If it is Patron, I think
yeah. So let's say it's a Patron Warrior and they play an Acolyte. I've got minions on the board. I have a way to clear it, or maybe I have a way to. It might take a card and a minion hit, or whatever it may be. Do I need to worry about it? Do I care if he's drawing cards and it's turn 5?
I think it matters.
Okay.
Depends on how much you're giving up.
Okay.
To clear it. Like if you're giving up 5 damage to the face or something, I don't think it's worth.
Okay.
If you're giving up, because they don't play shield block, so like the armoring, like their ability to gain health as a warrior is actually quite limited. So that 5 damage is gonna be very significant. If you have like a 2/2 that you just like, and you have like a 4/4 that gets also attacking, I quite like throwing a 2/2 in to the 1/2. Yeah,
because I mean I'm so used to having tunnel vision. If I see like a mage or somebody else play an Acolyte, I'm like, I got to get rid of that. Last thing I want is for them to get 3 cards out of the thing, or they'll buff it up to a 3/2 or a
sometimes
3/1,
can be more than 3 as well in the deck because of Battle Fury.
Sure, you're right. Yeah.
That's
not Battle Fury, Battle Rage. Sorry.
Yeah.
Battle Rage.
Yeah. That's the real concern with Acolyte in Patron. Is not that they'll get 3 cards; it's that they'll get 5 cards.
Okay.
Because of like a 3 Acolyte plus like 1 for the face and 1 for the damage Acolyte. So yeah, Avery is right on the money. If you can clear it for 3 damage, then 100% do it. Any more than 4, I'd say that's when you want to just go face because it's not worth it.
Is it worth silencing?
Yes.
Yeah.
If
definitely.
you've got an owl, it's turn 3, turn 2, turn 4. Is it worth silencing just to say, "Shut up, get out of here"?
Yeah. It's
Actually, wait, hold on. No, depends on your deck.
Okay.
Sometimes, if the patron, because patron is such a skill intensive deck, sometimes you can win games off of and it's also very style preference. Like a lot of it depends on the way you like to play the deck. So some players like to turn 4 weapon, Death Bite, turn 5, use the second Death Bite charge and play a patron right there. Some players don't like to do that, right? So sometimes in that kind of situation, having an owl helps because you can clear one of the patrons, like the 3/2/1, but you can't clear the 3/3 and you just silence it. So you can use it as patron removal. It depends on the matchup. If you're handlock, I wouldn't silence the Acolyte. I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't care. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if it's turn 2 or turn 3, I'd rather tap than silence, right?
Yeah.
But because I can potentially use that silence later on as a patron removal, I can clear all of them, but it's just one more left that I can't get rid of, and then you just silence that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but to be fair, there are not that many silence targets in the deck. So
okay, sure. Yeah, I'm thinking
patron is
it's the patron, and then maybe a Frothing Berserker and maybe a grid patron. I guess that's it.
And also depends on the player as well. If but if the opponent's the kind, I mean, not like you would know this, but like if your like opponent's the person who like berserkers early without a what's the card, Warsong Commander, and doesn't get any damage, then I guess in that case the Ivy Owl will be relevant. So like seriously, Patron, like there are a lot of different ways to play it. So like the way how you're like, it's hard to give 100% like accurate information on how to play in a matchup, because how the matchup plays out really depends on how your opponent plays his deck. Specifically with Patron, because it's so it's so dependent on the player style. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's the Patron Warrior. James, thanks again for writing in. Really appreciate it. So next we'll go on to Combo Druid / well, really just Combo Druid. Maybe a little bit of rampiness, but I loathe this week. I've loathed Combo Druid. They have been messing me up.
They've had the Wild Growths and the Innovates.
Oh my god, yeah. Nothing better than like a turn 5 or I have been turn 5 comboed. Double innervate.
On turn 5.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you died? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Do you die?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, they just
I'm gonna have to see like a screenshot of this in order to believe you.
I'm just gonna start recording all my games.
Yeah, just in case I ever ask you and be like, prove it to me.
JJ. I don't know. Again, I think it was a greedy deck. Obviously, it had enough of the early game to get me down, but yeah. It happens.
The decks are good again because the reason why the deck wasn't popular was because Zoo was popular, and like for that short period of time, Paladin was played like during BRM. Everyone was trying to play Dragon Perry, and the deck's quite good against Druid. So like now that both these decks are kind of out of the equation, Zoo being more slightly out of the equation because of Patron / hybrid what's it called? Patron or hybrid hunter or the Dragon Warrior with Blackwing Corruptors. Like these decks every deck sounds like slightly better against Zoo and more prepped for Zoo and all the like weird demon things that Zoo does. So it makes Zoo slightly worse. So there's slightly less Zoo, which means that there's more, and also because Handlock's coming up again, which means that there's going to be more Druid to counter the Handlock. Like just how the meta goes. That's why Druids are coming back. Like the numbers are increasing. Though I've seen two versions. Like there's the double combo version, like the typical Druids that you see, and there's a more like RAM oriented one with Kel'Thuzad and Cenarius. Okay, maybe not Kel'Thuzad, but at the very least Cenarius and Ancient of Wars.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And maybe one combo.
And I've seen some of those players run, what is it, the Volcanic Lumber? Did I say that right?
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, at least a one of. I've done pretty good against it because I've either, with Midrange Paladin, I've either got a big game hunter, or you've got your
Eldor.
Yeah, thank you, Eldor Peacekeeper, or you can equality. So there's plenty of answers, but just the straight combo Druid is wrecking me.
I find it hard, like a bit strange though. I feel like mid-range Pally is quite good against.
I don't know. Maybe I don't have enough taunts. Maybe that's my issue.
Speaking of taunts,
I don't know.
A lot of the mid-range Druids are picking up more taunts in order to like kind of be slightly better against Zoo. So one of the tech choices that is going down is instead of Pirated Shredder, they play Senjin, or they definitely play 2 Sludge Belchers instead of like trying to get greedy and play a Verdrick. Small things like that, just trying to fit more taunts. You could even consider playing Sunwalker. I quite like that card honestly. In a ramp Druid that tries like taunt Druid, quite a common archetype. So yeah, like the deck is quite decent. It curves out well, and it is a way to end the game because of the Savage War Force of Nature Savage War combo. So yeah, that's why it's quite popular again. Be wary.
Yeah.
beware the hidden combo is the deadliest.
Beware the shifting sand.
and Malfurion coming on your back and getting you.
Exactly.
God damn it,
The deck's quite good against Control Warrior, so those are the people who should be afraid. People play Control Warrior.
It's also quite good against Freeze Mage, fun fact.
Oh yeah, Freeze Mage as well.
Yeah.
And Handlock. They are good matchups for this deck. So.
Yeah.
I have seen quite a bit of Freeze Mage recently. It's I think it's one of those things. It's just because it's good against like
Zoo.
Zoo and Patron, and
Yeah.
it's not too bad. And it's like not even too bad against Face Hunter. It's not a great matchup against Face Hunter, but it's definitely not like a control warrior matchup. It's that you still have a chance against Face Hunter.
Mm.
So it does pretty well. Freeze Mage does quite well against a lot of the field, and it even does quite well against. I've still seen a lot of, I guess, Flame Waker Tempo Mage this week. So Freeze Mage does quite well against that as well. So come back of the Freeze Mage, and that's sort of, I guess, spoken to a little bit of the death of Patron Warrior, because I had so much trouble as playing against Flame Waker Mage as Patron Warrior. It's just too much of the early game crack before you can, like, you're behind before you can combo. Sort of just been brutal.
Because Handlock's back, that Tempo Mage has finally found a good matchup. I mean, like, a very, very good matchup. Like, because there's more Handlock now, that Mage deck has, like, really, really good matchups. Like, against Patron, I think against Patron is slightly advantage. I don't think it's, like, crazy, but it's, like, slightly good.
Yeah, it's always a tough game, I find. It's like, I never feel like, oh, shit, I'm out. But I definitely feel like, oh, crap, this is going to be a grind.
But against Handlock, it's like super good because like you can't get yourself lower than like 13. Even like 13 is a stretch. You kind of want to keep at 15, but that makes your Moltons terrible. And you need to draw like your anti-Q bots. It's like a very weird conundrum.
Yeah.
Which I feel like all this is a sign that maybe Mech Mage could be back, man.
See, we told you, Don. We told you, Don. It's time, buddy. It's time for the Mech Mage.
When Handlocks are coming out, that's when Mech Mage starts coming back.
I don't know about Mech Mage.
I don't know.
Do you have Antonidas? Maybe you're missing the Antonidas. The deck really needs Antonidas.
No, I don't have Antonidas for starters.
Yeah,
and even throwing it totally into the mix is always nice.
Yeah.
With Antonidas, yeah.
I've made a lot of. I've learned twice, and I don't know why it took me 2 times to realize. I'm surprised it took me 1 time. You don't fill up the board against a Freeze Mage. You don't. You don't have 7 minions on the board because you realize, oh, I'm fine, I'll heal. Oh, god damn it, I can't do an anti-heal bot. You go in thinking, all right, he's used a Blizzard, he used both of his freezes. All right, I've got it. He can't possibly have another freeze or some way to stop me. I've got it.
Unless, and that happened to me just now, just a few hours ago. I was playing Oil Rogue. I had already healed myself back out of kill range, basically, and he had blown part of his combo. I think double frost bolts to my face, and then frost novering all my minions. But I was already way up there again, and then something, I don't know what happened, but one of my minions died anyway, and that kind of sealed the deal. And I had damaged the Freeze Mage a lot already, and I kind of had gotten rid of his ice block and everything, and then he had just at that point he had just run out of options, and then the healing that I got from putting those minions down got me out of the killing range, and then at that point it didn't really make a difference that he froze all my stuff, because he then conceded, realizing that he didn't have anything, and he would have probably lost the next 2 turns. So.
And
it's a very big deal whether you have a minion slot.
Yeah.
Like, because when you don't have a minion slot, it's not just like you can't play Healbot. You also can't play BGH, and it's not so much that. And the most important one is to me, Iron Big Owl, which is like silence only exists in many decks in the form of Iron Big Owl. Like heal, maybe like other options. So it's probably Healbot lah. So I guess Healbot as well. Maybe like removing the Antonidas or the Alex, there are other ways to do so you don't need like minions for that. But like it's not so much that you have the card and you can't play it. It's also that they're not afraid that you have it because it's not relevant, because you have 7 minions. So they are definitely, like, when you slot up the 7, they are definitely going to doomsay you the next turn, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
So
it's so and you can only hate yourself for doing it, or in my case, only hate myself. Twice, and it's like, why? I learned last time I shouldn't have done this. It was just kind of, I was playing Paladin, and I got 2 mana, hit token. No, don't hit the token. Why did you token?
The habits. in-gang boss is actually really bad against Freeze Mage for this very reason, I feel. Because like you just fill up with these useless shits and you want to like Doom guard his face, but you're 7 slotted, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's so horrendous.
And here's another question. When do you think is a good turn, or is there not, to steal a secret? Is
the last
there...
turn possible.
Last turn... Okay, so don't use it early.
Latest.
Okay. I feel like they're only running ice blocks and ice barriers, right?
Ice barriers, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe a counterspell. I've seen some run one of counterspell, but
really? Wow.
sometimes. But I feel like it's a
I can't
little
imagine
silly.
being that good.
Yeah. So wait.
Because they always kill you just by 1 turn. They're always just 1 turn.
It is always 1 turn.
Yeah.
Oh,
So like if you can beat them on that last turn, like they think they have 1 more turn after you, they don't because you got mistake. That's how you win.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the sickest tag. Like that's literally the tag that like completely seals the deal. Like if you can get your mystic in your hand when you are on the last turn before he just after he Alexes you and he thinks he's safe, like that one tag card just completely crushes the matchup. And to me that's the only tag card that crushes the matchup completely. Like
Sure.
even if you Black Knight a druid or you Harrison a warrior, the matchup's not lost. It's just like advantageous, right?
It's just
But,
a tempo swing. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's just like not a big deal. But Kazaning, like the ice block is completely game. Like the game's over just because you did that. So, because like even if you can't kill them, they can't kill you. So you get 1 more turn. Like you stole that lead back from them. Right. Yeah. So especially if it's the second ice block, like the game is completely done. Like after you do that.
All right, so that's some druid and some mage talk. So we've got a topic we want to talk about. First, I'm going to burn my rant. All right, and this goes back to last week. So playing a game, and I've got 4 minions on the board. It's the other player's turn. They drop a Sylvanas and they taunt it up with a guys, I'm having a brain fart with these cards this morning. Blizzard, there's too many damn cards. All right.
Oh yeah.
You need to stop. Here we go. Defender Vargas. Blah. So
Seriously though, Blizzard, please don't stop.
yes. So I had 4 cards on the board, one of them being a fresh Tyrion. And then I had just a bunch of other garbage cards. I had, I believe, it was a Warlock down to 4 health. So I had a 2 attack, and a 1 attack just token. And they've got this. So I'm looking and I'm like, all right, I have damage on the board. The only way he can turn this around is if Sylvanas steals my Tyrion. So I've got in hand, all right, I'm going to make a token, and I'm going to drop the Quartermaster. I've got 6 minions on the board. So if my math's correct, I have an roughly 85% chance to win the game, and a 15% chance, roughly, to lose the game there.
Completely lose it.
Just completely lose it because they'll have a taunt. So I'm looking at my cards. I had those, and I even had a Sledge Belcher in hand. I'm not going to play the Sledge Belcher because that just ups the chances of him having a taunt. So I was destroying him. Obviously, had him down to 4 health, ready to go. Odds are in my favor. 85% chance to win the game. Sylvanas steals Tyrion, and I ended up losing the game.
Joy!
So damn frustrating, and I think it's such a great example of what we talked about last week. The
idea that when you're winning, the idea is that you want to minimize RNG, and that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. So I mean,
as you pointed out, like 85% is a big deal in statistics.
Sure,
that's close to secure.
You go from a 25% to a 15% chance to lose the game.
Exactly.
So I did everything right and still lost the game.
Lost.
I was salty for about 15 seconds. I'm like, you know what? I did the best that I could. Congrats, RNG, won him the game. On to the next one. Just let it go. Nothing you can do about it.
15 seconds. I mean,
a lot of things were broken in those 15 seconds. Though.
Yes. Oh yeah. 3 new monitors and.
I feel like my ability to deal with RNG is really dependent on the card. Like, then the one card that has 0 effect on me now, because I've lost to it so many freaking times, even though it makes no mathematical sense whatsoever, is MC tag, mind control tag. like I'll be playing Druid and I would like turn one Chow against this was against mid range Paddy. This was back in the day. Like turn one Chow, turn two what's the card? Wild Growth. Turn three, Innovate, Coin, Boom. And he plays MC Tech, he just takes the boom. And I'm like, I'm out of cards because I just spent all my shit building up that boom. And now it's all gone. Like I just lose so many games to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't even bother like when I lose to MC Tech, it doesn't even bother me anymore. I couldn't be bothered. Like I couldn't care less. Like this just happens so often that I'm so used to it. But if I were to lose to like a Sylvanas, that would be really or Unstable Portal. Like those cards still upset me because I haven't played against them a lot. So like you gotta build the resistance, man. Like just keep losing to these things by playing more games. Eventually you're gonna get numb to everything.
But you eventually you just won't feel anything, and you'll be the best host and player ever.
And then you'll hit legend.
Your soul, but to be fair though, your soul will be so dead from suffering from so much bad RNG. I'm not sure if it's worth it.
But I think it's definitely like.
Sorry.
Okay. You guys.
The problem with MC Tech is that it comes out when you don't expect it. Like, because I was going to say against the Sylvanas argument is the idea that
it was on the board
because you know she is out, you have to calculate in the idea that RNG might kick you in the butt, and you might want to have some backup plan, like some direct damage, anything to seal the deal. Really. But MC Tech just comes out of nowhere, and that maybe because I was going to make this argument that maybe because there's so much RNG in the game, it might be a good idea to try and always have a backup plan in your hand, which of course is not always possible. And some decks even play the way like Zood plays the way, I don't have a backup plan. Either I win with what I have or I lose. That kind of mentality. But yeah, you're right. Like MC Tech and that kind of stuff just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, my only guaranteed out was an owl, and I didn't have it in hand at the time. So, I mean, even a Equality Consecrate that could still lose me the game. It's I played the best, and so many times you'll do that. You'll think about all the potential outcomes. Get those odds in your favor. You're still gonna lose, but you gotta let it go. It happens because you're gonna win games like that. You're
never gonna remember the games whereby you were in that exact same position and you won.
Sure.
Those never stay in your mind. The only ones that stay in your mind are the ones that you lose. Yeah. So, yeah.
So congrats to that Warlock. You earned it.
I think the main thing though is you should, instead of being like really salty about the games you lose to RNG, like those really sort of clutch RNG moments. If you've done that well that you're ahead and you're in a situation where he has to get like the 15% to win
lucky.
To win the game, you should just be like, screw it. I did everything that I could to try and win the game and I just lost. So, and I think that's something you just need to accept as part of Hearthstone is sometimes you can do everything correct and still lose, and that's kind of what makes it like so part as great as it is that can happen.
And I think that is a huge part of why it gets so much flag, is because those are the moments that people remember, and then they start accumulating in your brain, and you start thinking, wait a minute, this game is so full of freaking RNG, that's not even cool, there's no skill involved whatsoever.
It's the cancer spreads.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a card game. It's not chess.
But the cancer is only in people's heads, as you said. Like they don't remember the times when they played well and they won as a direct result. They only remember the times when they played well and they lost to RNG. So, yeah.
All right.
You know what's not cancerous?
What?
Cheap decks, accessible decks like Face Hunter and Zoo.
An Avery segue. I love those.
Good segue.
we need to get a picture of him on a Segway and just.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have it go across the screen.
I don't fuck with
Avery segue. So we're going to talk a little bit about maybe what Blizzard, the struggle that Blizzard goes through to balance the game, specifically, a new player strategy versus maybe, a veteran player or deck sizes, what the advantage is there, and how does Blizzard perhaps make the game accessible for newer players or players that don't have a full deck list, but then how does that counteract and balance for players that maybe have played a lot, earned all the cards, spent money on the cards, and maybe have a higher skill cap. So who wants to start?
Let me start.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
So, okay,
Let him get on the soapbox.
Yeah.
There's this term out there in game design. It's called first order optimal strategy, or FOOS, or FOOS strategy for short. You can look it up. It is a real thing. And the idea behind that is to implement that a staple of good game design should be that you implement a certain set of mechanics or strategies that are very accessible from the start of the game, that are easy to learn, easy to pick up, and then after a while, and they have a very good, that's their main thing. They have a very good skill input to power output ratio. So you get a lot of power for very little skill that you put in. That's the idea. And they are meant to give new players a competitive edge, to make them feel like, okay, they can compete. They might have a shot at this game, because that's the last thing you want in a multiplayer game, is the meta just completely stalling out, and experienced players being so much better than anyone else that you just get crushed the minute you log in for the first time. And I was thinking about this concept in relation to Hearthstone, because I got there by just a generic thought that I realized the game might be getting harder, because everyone's getting better at it. And then I kind of had, on a second thought, I was like, I realized that maybe it's not only that, but maybe it's also it's harder to play because there's some decks out there that are easy to play, but quite good or very good. And the idea that when you want to try and counter them, you not only you have to come up with a counter deck, but you also have to be better at playing it than the player who's got this quote unquote easy deck to play. And so and that kind of made me think about the two prime examples of these, in my view, would be Zoolock and Face Hunter, because I looked it up. Because I was not 100% sure, but basically the decks of today, they still consist of classic and basic cards for the most part. So they are quite accessible in that sense to build. Like the only exceptions would be stuff like Annoytron, Implosions, Imp Gang Boss for Zoo, and of course Greifsucher, Quickshot, and the like for Hunter. So yeah, my take on this, and just as a pitch for you guys, is that what if these decks are just a slight bit too strong for the skill that they require to play? And because we see them dominating Legend, like I remember at the beginning of the month, one of the first news that came out was this guy had hit Legend playing a Face Hunter, basically.
Yeah, Zixo does that a couple seasons ago, right?
Zoo.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Zoo.
Oh, was it Zoo?
Okay.
No, I think it was.
It was Patron this season.
Yeah, not this season, but I think it was a couple seasons ago.
Zixo's famous for playing Zoo. Is definitely Zoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there also the idea that the new cards have made these decks, even better. Like stuff like Implosion has just improved Zoo, for example, in general. And then, so my opinion is that they might be a bit too good, because they disincentivize people from trying out the strategic depth of the game, and just they keep just playing the cheesy stuff.
Okay. Can I get on the soapbox now?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. I disagree quite strongly to this on two different points. Okay. The first is that these decks are too so like firstly, specific to Hearthstone, the point you made was that Zoo and Hunter are too strong for the skill level required to play them, right? And they're also and in comparison to how cheap they are in terms of the dust that is required to make them. I don't think this is okay. I mean, just to like nitpick a little bit, it's a little bit untrue for Zoo, because most of the Zoo versions that are going around now have Bane of Dooms, have Dr. Boom, have Mal'Ganis and Sylvanas. So like the deck is kind of getting more expensive in terms of dust wise. So Zoo's maybe not the best example. Maybe we'll talk about like traditional aggro Zoo, where the most expensive cards are Moonguard.
The kind of budget Zoo that everyone had last year.
Okay.
I think this deck would be quite incapable of hitting Legend as of now. But anyway, let's just talk about Face Hunter. The idea that like very cheap aggro decks like that, and maybe you can include like even Flame Waker Mage into this paradigm, because it's also quite a cheap deck to make. Then these decks are cheap and too strong for being so cheap, because a lot of new players would have access to these decks, right? I don't think they are easy to play at all. Honestly, they are decks. Okay, so in Hearthstone and a lot of card games, there are two different kinds of decks. Like there are two different scales, right? There's a deck that performs well, and there's a deck that performs badly. And there's another completely separate scale, decks that are forgiving and decks that are unforgiving. So a deck that is forgiving is a deck that a drastically stronger player than another player.
Like a Ram Druid. I always found that to be
very forgiving, right? Yes, I agree. So decks that if your skill level, like the differential in the skill level between two different players will not result in a great change in their win percentages. Whereas an unforgiving deck is a deck that whereby the skill level between two separate players playing the same deck will have a great impact on whether they win with the deck or not in terms of win percentage. So an example of an unforgiving deck would be the old Miracle Rogue, or current Grim Patient Warrior, or Freeze Mage. These are decks that are extremely unforgiving. If you suck at it, you're gonna win like 1 in 20 games, right? And but with Zoo and Hunter, these are forgiving, very, very forgiving decks. And I think that because they are forgiving, it is easy to misinterpret the win percentages as beneficial, as very high and very strong, because players that you can clearly tell from their players that are subpar, like that you can
that's kind of the
bad
idea.
Players.
That's kind of the idea of a first order optimal strategy, though, is that it's
for new players
it's
to have
hand holding
access.
for new players and giving them like a decently good chance.
Okay,
maybe, maybe.
I understand this idea. But I'm trying to say that I don't think they are too strong, because okay, hold on. Let me get my train of thought. Okay, I don't think they're too strong. I think all of the decks that you can possibly think of in Hearthstone, as of this current metagame, all have extremely strong counters to them. And if a certain deck gets too popular, they're going to get instantly countered. So Zoo, for example, was popular sometime back, get instantly crushed by Grim Patient Warrior. That's why Zoo's not even like top 3 now in terms of like people's ideas of the popular decks and the strong decks to play on ladder. Face Hunter, whenever Face Hunter gets popular, Priest starts making a showing. Control Warrior starts making a showing. Metagame's balance, right? So like in terms of hitting Legend and so on and so forth, that's just the players getting lucky in terms of the timing that they were playing, and they took advantage of the metagame in the same way that anybody could do that with any other deck. It's not that these decks are so broken and like unbelievably strong for their cost and are able to take advantage of that. Secondly, I think these cheap decks that are that good, specifically Zoo and Face Hunter, in the context of Hearthstone, are very beneficial to be very good, because it's very rewarding to be very good at these decks, because they have very good win percentages a lot of the time. What I mean by this is basically decks like Face Hunter and Zoo are accessible at the start, and as you get better at playing them,
your point is that they don't cap out on their power level, basically.
Yes,
and so
exactly.
More a bigger input of skill results in a bigger input of win percentage. And
yes.
And
they teach you the game more, which will equip you better to play other decks, right? Like great sequencing at Zoo will win you add an easily 10 to 15% to your win percentage than in any other deck. But besides Hearthstone in general, I want to address the bigger concern that you have, that what's it called? First order optimal strategies, right?
No, but you're kind of but the thing is, like, your arguments kind of make me realize that maybe Hearthstone doesn't have these in general. It's like there's these kinds of, because I'm thinking about into my head while you were talking, I was thinking about what else could I bring up? Like, what else kind of deck would maybe qualify as this kind of thing?
Yeah. Well,
and I couldn't really come up with anything. And now I'm asking myself, is that a problem?
Well,
like, does this game need something like the infamous Noob tube, like the grenade launcher that you can just kill anyone with?
Right.
If you
my question then is, as you guys were talking, is specifically Face Hunter, is the difference in skill level there just knowing the matchup? does a deck like Face Hunter drive itself, but the better player is going to know the matchup and know when not to drop this, not play this card, but play this one instead because it plays around this, blah, blah, blah. It obviously, I mean, that's an obvious makes that player better, but is that where the power spike? Is that where
that's where I got the impression from that Zoolock is an easy to play deck because in a way it does play itself. Like you just put yourself out there, do what you have, and as long as you have a general understanding of how the game works, and sooner or later you arrive at the point where you have this empty and you just have stuff on the board, basically.
There's
not much playing around the enemy's tech cards.
To answer Mike, I don't think knowing matchups definitely add a huge power spike in terms of like your win percentages. But I think more than that, it's also the ability to understand how your cards interact with the opponent's life total and like have a different game plan. Because as a new player or like a less experienced player of Face Hunter, it's very easy to know to decide to trade, right? Because you start very early, you're like, okay, I'm going to maintain board control. Being a better player is realizing that board control is not a valuable resource for this deck. A more valuable resource is dealing damage to the opponent to win. So knowing that ascends you to another level of skill, regardless of matchup, right? Ascend you to even an even greater level of skill in playing Face Hunter will be realizing that, hold on, I kind of do need to trade for at least the first 2 turns. And after that, I can decide not to. Because I want to make sure that my 1 drop gets in at least 2 hits, and that's how I win most of my games. Or my 2 drop gets in at least 1 hit, and that's how I win most of my games. And knowing that I need to stick at least 1 or 2 threats for at least 1 extra turn on top of the one that they're being played. For example, like Knife Juggler or Leper Gnome, for them to actually be effective cards in dealing damage. So therefore, I need to use my weapon, my Glaivezooka, to trade instead of hitting face with the Glaivezooka. Because and you like start counting damages that way, and that ascends you to an even greater level of skill with the deck. But of course, to answer your question, knowing matchups is not 100% of getting better at Face Hunter. I think sequencing and game knowledge, like universal game knowledge, instead of like in terms of knowing how the resources of the game, life total, board, mana, and cards in hand interact with each other, make you a better player at it, but it definitely plays a significant role, as it does with any other deck. Yeah.
Matt, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you guys clearly haven't played enough Face Hunter and Zoo. just to see how deep the rabbit hole actually does go.
Yes.
Particularly, because like the amount of things that like run through your brain in the first 2-3 turns of Zoo and Face Hunter is just ridiculous, because like
it's unimaginable.
Okay, I mean, maybe
like Coin Haunted Creeper is usually like the best move in my mind, just because it's so like robust against any sort of like turn 1-2 clear that your opponent might have.
Because you might draw the Glaivezooka turn 2, which is the best, and Haunted Creeper is the best one to get a Glaivezooka on, stuff like that. Yeah.
Or you might get a good knife or 2 good knives out of a Knife Juggler next turn if you trade it in.
Yes.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like leveraging yourself with Zoo to try and win games on knives is like a big thing. Like trying to ram a Haunted Creeper into something and then assume you're going to make the knives is like sort of just it's. But yeah, once like I played like Warlock is like my only golden hero, and that was predominantly a lot of Zoo. In that, like, I just grounded games over and over again, and you just become so good at those like 1-2-3 turn matchups. It's just ridiculous. And Avery has Golden Warlock and Golden Hunter, so he's all about the rabbit hole. He knows how deep it goes, how many levels there actually are to these things. And
I also have Golden Dread and Golden Pelly. I'm not like a pure Cancer player, by the way. Just letting everyone know.
Okay, I mean, it seems that
it was Aggro Paladin. I saw him.
Yeah, we have established the fact that these 2 decks do have a higher skill seeding than maybe first appears at first glance.
Yeah,
because they're played at basically any level of skill that maybe you start thinking, oh, that's a noob deck, that kind of idea. Maybe that's where I'm coming from. It's like maybe I am under this illusion that they are too strong for what they are, or on the other hand, you don't need to be a good player to be good with them, and maybe it is true there can be a much better player with them than maybe the average user.
I think I think your point is that they're far better than a lot of the decks at the same dust level, right?
See, that's part of my point exactly, and the idea that they start strong, whereas other decks, if you don't know what you're using, what you're doing, they're just crappy. Like if you don't know, you'll not have.
Wait, so is it about? So is your point about skill level, like how good am I a player, or is it about card access in terms of like how much Hearthstone I've played? So that's how many cards I have in terms of the dust. Is it about skill or is it about like cards?
It's more.
Yeah, for you, Don. I've got a.
It's a bit of both, but my main concern was that it was skill level. To be honest.
Skill level? Okay.
The idea that, and you kind of alleviated that concern. I mean, I'm glad, but
I understand.
But the question I'm now asking myself is, does maybe Hearthstone not have these kinds of decks that we would like wholeheartedly like? What's the deck that you will wholeheartedly recommend to a noob and say, try that out? It's gonna bring you quite far, but only so far. Because from what I understand now, if you play Zoo and Hunter very well, it will take you even further.
Sure, that's a really good point.
I'd say for a new player these days, particularly if they've got a couple of dollars lying around, would probably be Tempo Mage, just because it's so familiar with. Mm-hmm. So you spend the entire tutorial playing as Mage, and I know
you spend your entire arena life playing as Mage as well, because it's so
exactly.
Yeah.
So
you even play your first matches against the Innkeeper as the Mage, to be honest, because it's the best basic deck.
That's what I mean. It's like play. I would probably recommend a Tempo Mage at this point, because if they can get the couple of GBG cards, like the Foundry cards, sorry, like Flame Waker, then you're bringing them up to speed with like an in-meta deck, and then it's from there they can then go play the Faith Hunter and the Zoo, but they'll have this this bigger understanding of the Mage because of the training and the tutorial and things like that. So that'd be my recommendation.
Okay.
To answer your question, Don, I don't like the bigger question I think you have, right? Is it a problem when a deck that is very accessible in terms of skill level and money in terms of like dust and value of the deck and stuff is 100% tournament like playable, not just playable but very very good in tournaments? Is that a problem? That's basically your big concern, right?
I mean, that's that's the overarching concern.
Yeah,
of course.
I don't think it's a problem at all. Like, I honestly think that in order to attract, like, as Hearthstone expands more and more, it's getting increasingly difficult for new players to pick up competitive, constructed, ladder ranked Hearthstone. And a lot of players, like, when we started playing, or like at least when I started playing, like, it was a lot of arenas, but and like a lot of arenas before I could get enough dust to build anything even close to like being able to get to rank 5. And I spent many months just like crawling around double-digit ranks and like realizing that like I hit like rank 13 and like I saw my first legend or something, and I realized that wait a minute, after this point every single deck's full of legends and I can't compete with any of these decks. Like, it took a lot of months to get out of that stage and come to a point where I was truly competitive. What more even now, because I played before Next and before BRM and before GVG. Now all of these things are in the game. It's so difficult for a player to get full accessibility to everything that you require in order to build a good deck to ladder with, to say presumably to hit legend. And having a deck at least one or two options that are very low dust requirement and seemingly easy to understand concepts, and tell players that you can even hit legend with these decks. I mean, they're so cheap and they're so simple. Like, it's a good kind of way to encourage them to play the game even more. Because as the game expands, it's going to get more and more daunting.
So your argument is basically, even though we agreed that these decks are not what I described as the classic Foo strategy kind of deck, because they have a higher skill ceiling than first appears, it's still a good idea to recommend them to beginners, because they still hold true to the expectation that this is better than something else for the amount of skill that a beginner will be able to put into it.
Okay, no, what I'm not really.
And then,
what I'm saying
and then an upside of those, maybe even compared to the Tempo Mage, is that on the off chance that people do familiarize themselves with these decks and get better at them, they have a chance to hit legend, and they have a chance to become,
basically, my idea is firstly that it's not true that these decks.
It's like, it doesn't do any harm that these decks are not only accessible but also have a high skill cap. Basically,
yeah,
that's
it's like it's not true that these decks are too good. I think that there's a very high skill level, but even if they were too good and did not have a very high skill level, I think we need decks that don't need a very high skill level or don't need too much dust to hit legend to encourage players to keep playing and have a goal to work towards. Because if every single deck that's capable of hitting legend all costs 8,000 or 9,000 or even 10,000 dust, why would anybody start playing this game from scratch? Because then it looks like a pay-to-win game. Like, I have to spend money. I can't just free to play my way in, right? You need certain decks that are low in dust cost, or you need certain decks that are easy to understand, or you need certain decks that are both of these things that are capable of doing very well, we encourage players.
See, and I agree, and that was my original point. I agree, but usually how this is handled is that these kinds of decks then start like
petering out at a certain level.
Start topping out at a certain level where they don't get better with the player's skill increasing. And in Hearthstone, this doesn't seem to be the case, and the deck does get a bit better with the player's skill increasing.
But that's true for every single deck. Like, every single deck should get better as your player's skill increases. Why should this deck not get better? I don't really understand your argument.
I see. I understand the reasoning for both.
The idea to make them top out is to encourage people to then diversify at that point when they realize, okay, like, this has taken me only so far. Now I need to think. Now I need to familiarize myself with the whole tactical array that is offered by the game. So and they don't stick to a certain strategy, and then when the eventual nerf comes around, they are left up with nothing to play because they have no idea how other things work.
And I understand that. I don't play that. I enjoy Zoo. Zoo's changed enough that I appreciate the deck. Face Hunter, I can't stand. I can't stand it. I mean, that's not a deck I like to play. That's not my play style. I don't think it's fun at all to play. I've played it, and I play 10 games in a row, and it's like, all right, I'm done. I get it. You play a card and go to face. Maybe you make a trade, a value trade here or there. I'll play around this because I know that's what this deck is, but it's not for me. And I think some people that's the same way. But I totally agree with you, Avery. We need those cheap, accessible decks. Otherwise, you're right. Why even bother unless you're going to drop $400 on cards if you're a brand new player? That's a difficult thing I think Blizzard has to work around, is not making it too easy. But I think where Don's coming off, and I get it too, it's kind of frustrating that for me, it's not how cheap the deck is necessarily. I think it's just how it's played. It's not fun to me. And when I play against it, I'm playing out cards just to get cards on the board to trade. I'm trying to think of an example where it's like you just throw a card out just to have a card on the board because you got to kill what's on the board.
Maybe that's part of the problem. It's like it just so happens that these decks are also the ones that are less fun to play against for the veterans, and so the counterplay is kind of boring. And so for us veterans, kind of their prevalence on ladder, we don't see the upside of it. We just get annoyed by it, basically.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I consider Avery and Matt, you guys to be veterans, and you guys play the shit out of those decks.
More importantly, this deck, specifically, these decks help to add balance. Like, every deck helps to add balance to the meta
now,
game in terms of limiting what something else is.
That was my next point, because that's the other thing we need, because otherwise we'd just see a bajillion legend-filled control decks.
Greedy decks. And these decks help keep the meta honest. So if you're getting squished by face hunters, it's basically a statement that your deck is not
too slow.
It's not robust enough against what's out there, and you should probably look at putting in things like, that's why Zombie Chow made such an appearance in Druid, because it was increased the matchup against Zoom, because you could trade with these things. And if you go second against a Druid and he turn one Zombie Chows, it is awkward as shit to play.
Yes, it's so bad.
It's
You wanted a coin knife juggler, now you can't. You wanted the coin hunter creeper, you can't. Like you can't do anything.
Even like even leper gnome is bad because he's just gonna like and even the real bit there is like if he has the sack to like just hero power and attack the leper gnome, take 3 damage and keep the zombie charge, it just gets worse. It's just like when you play a bunch of face hunter, you see the other side. You see these like how often you're put in these really shitty spots where it's like, oh crap, I've basically stalled and I'm gonna get wrecked.
I think.
And anyway,
go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Avery.
To answer Don, like basically his concern was that the strength of these decks will not add diversity because players would not try and play different things. I think 2 factors lead to this eventually happening. Firstly, sheer boredom, especially when they hit like golden class already or something, and they realize they have enough dust in their collection to play other things. They play when you play something too much, it just gets a bit boring. You need some variety. And I think that in and of itself in Hearthstone, where you can play like maybe 10 games an hour or maybe like 12 games an hour, and you sit down and you play for long stretches of time. If you play a deck too much, it's going to get very dreary and boring. Where all the combinations and the way the mulligans work, you guys don't need to think a lot because everything's very natural and coming on autopilot. You're going to want to find something else to play, and that in and of itself, as part of a card game, is going to create diversity. Like when you play a game, you don't always just look to win. You play to enjoy, like at least some percentage of the time. And even though winning is a big part of enjoying, having diversity and having it feel fresh is also going to encourage diversity in its own way. Secondly, the meta game shifting is also another way that encourages players to have more than one deck to play, right? Because if, like as we talked about, as we constantly reference throughout like maybe like the past 2 or 3 podcasts, the meta's always changing, and what decks good are always changing, and what's tier 1, what's tier 2, what's tier 3, what's not playable is always changing. And so these very, very cheap decks at some point are going to be cycled out of the rotation of good decks. Are going to reach into the bad deck category. Zoo is on the way of going down that road. Face Hunter's on the way up that road, but like this could easily change within the next month when more innovations come out or when players start metagaming differently. So that is also going to promote diversity because players don't want to be held to the whims and fancies of the meta game in order so that they can go kill on ladder. They don't want to be like, oh, I only got Zoo, so I can only play Zoo when Zoo's good, and when Zoo sucks, I can't play ladder. Like players would hate the feeling of being limited, and so they're going to find diversity by finding another deck that's an alternative when their like cheap deck, so to speak, like Zoo in this case, is bad. Maybe when Zoo's bad, okay, I'll start cobbling some dust together to build Druid so that I have something else to play in case Zoo sucks. And I think that also, as part of the game mechanism itself, promotes diversity. Yeah, these 2 factors.
Don, maybe your thought is kind of like mine too, is we just see so much of it that it gets kind of like, oh my God, not another one. I mean, that's usually what I thought is like, oh, here we go.
Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe Hearthstone, as Avery has made a good point, maybe Hearthstone doesn't have this problem that maybe games like League of Legends and the like have, where you only have because you have all the stuff available in some way. It's not locked away from you per se. You can play any class you want. It's not like in LoL where maybe you have 1 or 2 heroes unlocked and because you're just starting out and everything else you're relying on the weekly rotation, and then you start realizing, shit, well, my favorite hero is out of the rotation. What am I gonna play now? That kind of idea. Yeah. That maybe Hearthstone doesn't have this problem.
I don't know. I feel like my deck right now this week is pretty aggro oriented, and so I'm doing really well against aggro decks. If they get me, it's just because they had a god hand to start with. But I know I'm weaker versus some of the control matchups. So I think that's what frustrates me is the games that I want to play, and this is just a personal thing. The interactions that I really like, I'm struggling against because I'm having to worry about all these other games that I hate the matchup. I just can't stand playing against it. But I have to have answers to it,
Mike.
Yeah.
I really personally, right, I don't understand why. Okay, I can understand, but I completely don't empathize with people like with ideas that like aggro matchups are not fun,
not as valid.
I think just because over I've played since beta. I think just because they've been around and They're, I
Maybe
mean,
it's because
they're always going to
aggro
be in
has-
fashion. I don't.
has always been a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If I play
So is
against,
Control Warrior.
if I play against it's true. That's true. If I play against a face hunter, not so much Zoo anymore. I don't BM, but I always BM a face hunter. I just do. I cannot stand playing against that deck.
Okay, like think about Face Hunter. Like if you lose, the games are short.
Right.
It ends very quickly. The pain doesn't last that long. Imagine fighting a protracted war against Freeze Mage and it takes 15 minutes and eventually you lose and you realize there was no chance you could have won because he Taurused on turn 6 and then he had Alex soon after and they just killed you.
So-
Isn't that even worse of an experience?
So
It takes way longer.
Freeze Mage, I agree. Just because Freeze Mage is you play with yourself and then they beat you. That's just how that deck works.
Yeah.
And sort of maybe Oil Rogue a little bit, but any other decks, I enjoy those interactions. Even if I lose, it's a fun time.
Control Warrior?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure,
like, just-
sure.
Those matchups where you're just slowly running out of cards
Yeah,
and you realize you have no way to come back.
For me, it's all right. Who's giving? I need to bait out this. I know they've got this removal. I'm going to bait it out with this card and then back it up with this card. So I know they're not. There's thought process behind it. Whereas when I'm playing against aggro decks, I just have to get something on the board. I've got a game plan, but if I can survive long enough, I'll win. But it's this card. I need this later. I don't care. I have to have something on the board, and I throw it on the board.
I understand.
It's not fun for me, and that just might be a personal thing. And I'm not. And again, we need aggro decks. I'm not saying get rid of them. Because Matt, you made a good point, and I agree 100%. We're just going to have really greedy control decks if it wasn't for aggro decks being a thing in competitive Hearthstone. It's just a person. That's my tilt, I guess. Is super aggro decks, and not even Zoo. I'm okay with Zoo nowadays. I think those decks are valid, and I don't know. I respect those people.
The Tech 2 test.
Maybe this is just taken out of my Magic experiences, but like players always whenever red deck, which is basically Face Hunter in Magic, is a good deck. Everyone's really really angry. I can't believe they made this deck good. Like this format's cancerous, and then everyone's like, standard sucks. Standard always sucks. No one plays standard anymore. We all play other formats, right? And then finally they came out in 1 year whereby a control deck, which is basically a control deck that plays similar to how mid-range Pally would play out, was a good deck. Everyone's suddenly oh, this is so boring. All the games are so long. Everything's terrible. I can't believe this format is so boring. Standard sucks. I hate standard. I never play standard. Basically, whatever's popular and whatever's very dominant, everybody hates, right? And I can understand this mentality.
Sure.
But let's think about Hearthstone right now after DRM. The format changes by the hour, and what decks are change by the day. Diversity exists already. What more do you want? And I feel like Blizzard did a great job with DRM of balancing out what's good and what's not good. And we're still trying to find out over time what's great. Look at Grim Patron suddenly out of nowhere. No one thought that card was good.
I completely misjudged that card. I thought
everyone did. No, I don't think a single person thought that Grim Patron would be the format defining card, right? But it is. In the same way that Boom, very few people thought Dr. Boom would be as good as it is, but it's really insane. And I mean, we're still in the process of figuring out what other cards from DRM fit where. And I think that, and honestly, I think it's very clever by Blizzard. The whole short-term adventure mode thing. Okay, I know a lot of people enjoy the puzzle element of fighting against the heroic bosses and the very storyline thing of going through the adventure. I hate it personally. I think it's a waste of my time. But and I never do the heroics and stuff. Sorry guys.
Blasphemy.
I just play my net decks and learn them, and I play Hearthstone to win, man. I'm such a asshole douchebag gamer. No, but as in I just personally don't find those entertaining. I just play just to get through and get the cards. I like the fact that they release very very small expansions, 20 plus cards, and most of them are good. I think that this just a few cards at a time, it means that we don't have to buy booster packs, so it requires less dust. It's a one-time investment, right? Secondly, it allows the design time to be shorter. Because I want to design GVG is going to take me a year because it's going to need a lot of time to make so many cards and get the graphics and the images and all the coding and everything in. But if I just make 30 cards that are all good, it's going to change the ladder format by a lot, but also not going to take that much effort on my part, right? So it's like basically a win-win for everybody. The format gets a huge shake-up. All the cards are great, so all the cards are worth looking at. It's very easy to design in terms of like the card designing and balancing and stuff because there are fewer cards to do this to. And I guess all the side bonus of adventure modes and storylines and puzzle stuff, but I honestly couldn't care about those. But obviously, players who care about those, they have those now, and that's a great thing for the game as well.
Sure.
I do like the adventure in general as a format to introduce new cards. Because if you're willing to put down the money, you are guaranteed to get all those cards and to be able to play with them.
I agree.
And for me, that is a huge deal. Like
as opposed to like booster packs, right? Where it's like a risk you might not get the ones you want.
Yeah. I mean, all that to say, I'm glad we have aggro decks. That's just my thing. We need them. I'm not saying get rid of them, and I still I gotta watch what I say. You're still human if you play one. You might be subhuman, but no, I'm kidding.
So not human confirmed.
He's no. DRC confirmed. He's not human.
Oh, yeah, no, we already knew that.
Yeah. So I mean, all that to say, this, especially the last few weeks, the last maybe month and a half, I don't mind it as much. I think that because there are so many good decks in the meta, and we're not playing like we did. We've said it so many times before, where it was like 3 decks and that's all you saw. I'm okay with it. It's just, that's my tick when blink and turn my head sideways every time I see a face hunter. Good job, Blizzard. That's all I'm gonna say. You've kept it relevant. New players, you can come in and still play competitively, and learn the game, and maybe, like you've said, like maybe next week, maybe you're right. Zulok isn't a thing. I'll probably take a Death Lord out of my deck and put whatever back into it. Because the deck was good enough for just Face Hunter, and maybe that'll go down. And maybe that's what I've enjoyed so far. Is it week to week, or even like you said, hour to hour, the meta does change a little bit. I don't know. That's my thought. Do you guys have anything else? Any other thoughts?
How do you feel about this now?
It's just Face Hunter. That is very enlightening, and I think I'm gonna play some Hybrid Hunter right now, right after this episode. I think we've exhausted this topic now, so definitely.
Yeah, Matt, do you have anything else to say? You've been rather quiet.
I've just always been pro all decks. I don't think any deck is particularly less valid for playing, and I think it's just sort of, I guess, a statement of how people think about Hearthstone and understand the meta and how decks interact with one another versus the people who complain about it. Mm-hmm. And I've just, I don't know. I've always been kind of zen about it.
I have one deck that I have a very big problem with, though.
What?
Grim Patron Warrior. Not because it's too good. Not because it's too good. No, it's not like I hate playing against this deck. It's that I feel like the deck is not accessible to all players. Not in terms of dust, but in terms of brain speed and internet connection speed and mouse speed. I feel like these should not be factors that affect a supposedly casual game like Hearthstone, especially when it's going to be on mobile. And I think that allowing a card like Grim Patron and Frothing Berserker and so on to exist, and all these cards and this deck to basically exist,
and to be so reliable on their animation time and everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's just a bad design by Blizzard.
That's
I feel
a technical fault. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. I feel like this
to be fair, I don't think they saw it coming. That's a little.
No, last week one of the devs already said that they didn't expect Grim Patron to be such a big deal that it was. Maybe they'll come out and it'll be all right if the card's on the board and it's your turn. The Grim Patron, for example, you get that animation once. If you get 5 more of them, you don't get the animation. It pops up. There's no hey, get in here. It's just one time. And I think
it's more. I think it's more likely. I think it's more likely that they'd just
shorten the animation.
Or not even shorten it, just credit the time that it takes onto your turn.
That would be fantastic.
I don't not much of a programmer. I feel like that would be easier.
That's easy. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think.
Is it really easy though? Because you got to do that for every single animation in Hearthstone.
Yeah,
that would just make the game longer because the turns are longer.
But there's only so many minions you could put on the board.
And I think it's easier to do that. I can basically, I think I can envision more problems by setting the amount of times a card and cards in general can animate versus how long a turn is. I think it's the quality of life would just be better for everyone involved if they just extend credited turns.
If you do the animation time add on to the overall time once, and you put in the effort to implement that kind of thing, it carries over to every new card you introduce where this might be a problem.
Sure.
Whereas if you take the second approach, you have to redo this for every card that turns out to be problematic.
And again, we haven't seen the source code for this, and it all depends on how it's set up.
And
but
I do read some stuff from game devs and especially community managers on Twitter quite often where they say snarky stuff like, well, you guys think you know how our game works, but let me tell you, it's not as easy as you think. So this might be a bigger problem that we might even suspect.
Well, because I see that at work a little bit too, because that's what I do. I program stuff, but it I guess it depends on how it was set up, and the more teams you have that work on different parts, if there's a lack of communication, you can kind of do things several times. If it's object-oriented programming, it should be pretty easy just to add in a function that, hey, when this card's played and this animation goes off, to add this much time.
I think you don't know. I think a much easier fix that we can do going forward. I think maybe adding the time back that was taken up by animation is a little bit too much of a stretch. I think they had when Blizzard planned the game, they had a certain game length duration that they had in mind. And if we were to add the time back, we might be deviating too much from that. I think a far easier stopgap solution. Maybe they could think about making the games longer. I'm not saying that's definitely a problem, but it may be a problem for Blizzard in terms of their marketability because they want the games to be short and casual.
Sure.
I think
I'm not sure.
I think an easy stopgap measure is just to shorten the Grim Patron animation and the Falling Berserker animation. Just shorten it. Just change that one specific element to the animation of the card. And I think that's far easier to do than to code an entire time duration thing.
If someone plays a combo heavy kind of turn like the Grim Patron turn, once they are done, they'll just end turn anyway. So that it's not like the turn is going to take longer just because the whole process is taking a bit longer.
Well, yes,
but you're just guaranteed to get the whole benefit and not.
No, but the turn will definitely be. But your turn in terms of real life time will definitely be longer than otherwise, which just means that the games are longer in general. They definitely if this happens, like what we're describing happens, 100% average game of Hearthstone is going to be longer than otherwise.
Yeah,
right.
But how much? I mean, how long do we guess that the animation for Grim Patron is?
Grim Patron
2 seconds. 2 seconons?
I think it'll take 3 minutes, a whole turn. Because you factor in thinking time as well. Now we allow him to think for a minute rather than think for 10 seconds.
I mean, seriously though, if we add time, are we going to say 2 seconds for the animation time? Is that pretty fair? When a patron comes out?
Yeah.
So let's say...
I think it's a bit high, but sure.
Well, we'll say 3. I mean, so let's say that's times 6, 18 seconds. That's kind of a big deal, but this deck kind of needs it, but how would that... I feel
you play Floating Berserker, and then you will win.
Yeah, that's... okay, touche. Very touche.
And not just Floating Berserker, Warsong Commander plus the Crow Taskmaster that you played on the same turn, plus the Floating Berserker plus the Whirlwind. You add all of that in. Because you want to attack with the Crow Task as well. What if you're exactly to a Crow Task and you can't get that attack in because your comms not fast enough?
I'm okay. I'm okay with it, at least even just pausing the game. Maybe that would be harder than just adding. Well, I don't know. Again, we're not devs. We haven't seen source code, so who knows?
I think I don't know. It just feels like time bank is the easier way, because if you think about it, the lightning bolt and the other the animation, the little icons on the cards that feature on Frothing Berserker. Does he have a lightning bolt or?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so the thing is, I think this is just purely from the way I look at it, and not a game dev perspective at all, is that I think that would be on all the cards. So instead of looking at breaking it down and saying, oh, Frothing Berserker gets this, it would be you'd have to change it so people with things with a lightning bolt would do this. But but I'm still all pro time bank, and I think you could even further specify time bank to be only if so you only get the added time bank if your turn goes to a rope. So if you like take 20 seconds with a combo and it doesn't cut into your rope time, then you don't get the time bank. You only time bank when you absolutely need it, I guess.
That's brutal.
Yeah,
I follow you though. Yeah.
So I feel like, obviously the counter argument there is that you get less time to, I guess, interact because you're still losing that time in your turn.
No, but doesn't all this also, like, when you add more time to the turn or like you pause the time and stuff, it gives the player more time to think. And if you like, especially a deck like Patron Warrior, like his turn could easily last in real time 3 minutes. Because right now he has like 10 seconds to think, and he's got to decide straight away because he has 80 seconds left to let all the animations resolve and press and press enter, and he can get all the attacks in, right? Now in this perfect world, we get what we want. Now he can think for like a minute like a minute and 10 seconds, and he does everything within the last 15 seconds. And because there's the times pause supposedly for all the animations that happen, he can get to think that long. And whereas another player, and that really means that every game is going to get much longer. Especially when like players think a lot, and there are certain players who take very long for their turns because they really need to process everything. Even, for example, newer players, it could mean the games could last like, now they last like on average maybe like 7-8 minutes. It could go up to 12-13 minutes, and that honestly could be a little bit too much for what Blizzard wants out of this game, especially since it's gone to mobile. Battery consumption and all, and like data consumption, maybe like taking 12, like let's say on average 15 minutes per game could be a little bit too long for what Blizzard's envisioning. And I don't think the time bank thing really works out in that way. I think the problem is the specific card, Grim Patron, and the specific card, Frothing Berserker, and their resultant animations, not so much the way the time system works as a whole.
But like, so it's Armor Smith as well. Anything that has like the per proc based effect, in that like every time there's a proc, it does this little animation, whether it be
but you see, Armor Smith is not really a problem because like, say you get a lot of armor, but you can end your turn before the armor resolves, so that's not the deal, right? The big deal with Patron is that you really need all the pages to come out, like you need to decide what to attack and how much damage you're dealing, or like whether what goes into what taunt if the board's very complex. You need all the pages to come out before you can attack with all of them, and you need all the pages to come out before you can let your Whirlwind resolve, so you can see how much your Frothing Berserker is at, and if it's worth attacking face or is it worth trading and stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that makes it very like, I understand that it's all cards that with lightning that like stack when a lot of it happens, but Grim Patron Warrior is a perfect storm of a lot of all these cards in the same deck. Especially when the Armor Smith is in the same deck on the board as well, when you roll in with your Frothing Berserker and your Patron. Like, it's just unbelievable like, the amount of animations that are processed. I think if you count like individual animations or individual like lightning triggers that happen, it could easily go up to like 40 a turn. That's just the deck's just not. It's not, the game is not designed for a deck like Grim Patron Warrior, I feel.
Right.
Yeah, like there's a problem with the deck.
We don't recommend playing Patron Warrior on an iPhone or a mobile phone.
Or on Australian ping is a stretch, because 220 is
Ow.
220, seriously?
Wow.
Holy shit, dude. How do you play WoW?
Very carefully.
I've got Australian servers for WoW.
Oh, okay.
Man, that's brutal.
So it doesn't work the same for Hearthstone. Like I don't know if this is like a general thing for Hearthstone, but when I play friend mode, I can like spam the emotes and like stack them up. I don't know if you guys can do that in ranked.
Yeah.
Like you can sit there and spam.
Ranks you can.
Okay.
Yeah. You are accurate.
Yeah. So I think in when I like challenge people who are in Australia, we go via the Australian server. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like there's lag. Other times it's pretty good. But yeah, it's I definitely don't like, roping is not terrible, but it's definitely not. I can't do it as clutch as other people can.
Oh, like in the last like 0.5 seconds, like fast attacks and everything.
Yeah. That's sort of.
You see the game that life coach roped all the way to the end of the rope, and he just missed that last attack to clear Emperor Thorison, which was 5-1, because he was playing Druid and he needed the hero power, and he just missed it, and because of that, obviously you lose the game after you fail to do something like that.
I saw the one where he had, when Nosdomo popped out and he had.
Oh wow, that's hilarious! Yeah,
and he didn't play Sludge Belcher because he missed it, and it's just it just went from there. But at at a certain point, you just have to fucking like realize that there's only 90 seconds in the turn, and you need to hurry up.
Maybe that's just the risk of playing a combo deck of that kind, is that there is a risk you might not get the combo off. So.
All right. Well, any other thoughts? Forever hold your peace.
Nope.
I think we'll go with that.
More listener emails if you're out there.
Yes.
Email.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
If there's a topic you want us to talk about, you can definitely email.
Yeah, no, I thought the
Yeah.
question this week was great. I
It's
thought it was
should-
perfect.
And as a
Mike
direct
have a
result,
shave?
we are now way over time. Like
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we've been going for. I think we're nearing 3 hours. So
Perfect. You know what? We don't do short podcasts here at DRC. This is one long rant.
Yeah, just send us
It
in
is.
questions like, who would you like to see on the podcast next? Which ditch would you like Don to be buried in? should Mike have a shave?
Never. All right. Well, that's it for Meta Anatomy. We'll be right back. And that's our show for this week. Thank you guys for showing up again. Don't forget, the Pit 2 is on May 30th. Go to www.deathrattlecrew.com. Look for the Pit 2 sticky for more information, or go to battlefy.com and search for the Pit from the Death Rattle Crew. You find us there. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching this, the video format, or if the audio format, get on YouTube. Just subscribe already. Find us on Twitter for all our rants and posts. They're wonderful. And if you're not already subscribed through a audio podcast catcher of choice, please do. iTunes, Stitcher, you name it. If you've looked for us on one, and you haven't found us, send me an email, let me know, and I'll see what I can do to get us on there. So other than that, Mooshu, Avery, and Don, thank you guys for showing up this week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
bye, guys.
Wow.
Have a good week.
I was at a bachelor's party last night. We're comparing testicles at one stage.
Oh, wow.
This was after a good 5 or 6 hours of solid drinking. And we had the groom the husband to be, and it was ridiculous how big they were. It was just fucked. Basically, one of the guys whipped both of his out, and the groom's one testicle was bigger than both of these guys once, and it's just like, dude, you might want to see someone about that. That's not correct.
Freaking elephantitis going on here.
That's not normal.
All right. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet Jesus. All right. God damn it, Matt.
Hey man, things happen.
Oh my God.